Those diligent officers, having already claimed 5 dumplings on their plates, considered it fair to leave the opportunity for others, thinking one more would make a full serving. Yet, upon turning around, they found their plates utterly barren. Aside from the single dumpling speared in hand, the other 5 had vanished without a trace. Who devoured my dumplings? The surveillance. I must review the footage. Of course, the chance to do so never materialized, as the mission awaited and time was of the essence. Meanwhile, Anju, slow to react, found himself jumping anxiously on the periphery, unable to elbow his way in. When the crowd finally dispersed, he rushed to the plate, only to find it spinning emptily before him. The surface gleamed brightly, with not a single dumpling skin left behind. The others, having finished their meals, began adjusting their collars and cuffs, donning their police caps, returning to their usual composed and serious demeanor as they exited the meeting room. Let us move forward with the tactics we just established. Once everyone had departed, Anju sighed in disappointment, placing his cap upon his head, preparing to step outside. Just as he reached the door, an officer approached him, mysteriously presenting a disposable takeout box. Anju, this is specially reserved for you by Comrade Xiao, as an apology. He has gone on a mission and asked me to deliver it. At that moment, Anju's gaze flickered as he accepted the box. And no one could fathom the thoughts swirling in his mind. Only he understood that, in that fleeting instant, he felt an unexpected surge of paternal affection. He suddenly realized that perhaps it was not entirely impossible for his father to consider adopting Xiao Lan as a sworn brother. At least a godfather would be more understanding than a biological father, albeit a tad younger. If only Xiao Lan had been born 30 years earlier, or even just 10, he could genuinely call him by that title. Meanwhile, Xiao Lan sat alongside old Lu in the police car, embarking on a mission with 2 major precincts and a dozen stations. It was the first time he felt an authentic sense of belonging as a police officer. Old Lu explained that this outing was purely to broaden his horizons and gain experience, requiring little effort on his part. Xiao Lan was even more exhilarated. It felt akin to being carried through a game by a master, racking up points effortlessly. On the way, Old Lu elucidated the strategy's essence, to apprehend the significant figures first, thereby making it easier to pressure the lesser offenders into surrendering voluntarily, seeking leniency. After all, arrest was not the ultimate goal, reformation was the true significance. If one still harbors a sense of fortuity, the police will meticulously scrutinize the list of confessions to ensure no one escapes. Xiao Lan nodded in agreement as he listened. That night, the incessant wail of police sirens became a nightmare for all criminals. In the fleeting moments before their capture, some found themselves intoxicated in the secluded corners of late-night bars. Others were racing down desolate highways. Some reveled in the company of beautiful companions in foot massage parlors, while others debated the state of affairs beside barbecue stalls, engaging in boisterous laughter and games of chance, and a few even resorted to public brawls over trivial disagreements. All of this reckless abandon, devoid of law and order, would culminate in a commanding shout. Freeze. Police. Hands on your head, squat down. The pursuit vehicles trailed behind the transport vans, arriving empty and departing laden with detainees. Perhaps the sheer number of officers was overwhelming, or perhaps the spectacle was too grand, causing many suspects to be utterly bewildered. Some clung to a false sense of security, believing their illicit activities were sufficiently concealed and that the police were not there for them. It was only after being cuffed that they were struck with disbelief. Wait, are they really here to arrest me? I thought they were after someone else. Xiao Lan observed several arrests and felt he had grasped the essence of the operation, yearning to join in. However, the overwhelming presence of officers left little room for participation. The suspects were simply too few. Despite his eagerness, a colleague from the Dongqing precinct firmly urged him back to his seat. Don't overexert yourself. We all know your physical assessment results. Just watch and learn this time. The team will support you, and your contribution will be acknowledged. With that, he nonchalantly exited the vehicle, offering Xiao Lan no chance to defend himself. It appeared that the results of Xiao Lan's previous physical assessment had become a defining label for him, until he underwent another evaluation. Everyone regarded him as the underdog of the Dongqing precinct. Even though he had once single-handedly taken on 10 adversaries, it was widely believed that his success was largely due to the advantage provided by a branch of a tree. Well, given his current state of sleep deprivation, he decided not to contest for the spotlight. The operation continued until 11 p.m. Due to its unblemished execution, devoid of any turbulence. Xiao Lan found himself dozing off in the police vehicle. In a state between slumber and wakefulness, he thought he heard a voice crackling over the radio. Attention! Attention! According to the suspect's wife, the suspect is armed with a shotgun, containing at least 2 rounds. The sound was indistinct, a mere static in his foggy mind. However, moments later, chaos erupted in his ears as someone shouted, "Get out of the way!" Following this was the ominous sound of an explosion. Bang! Startled, Xiao Lan felt his body instinctively propel itself out of the window, soaring through the air in a comet-like arc. Everything transpired too swiftly. He barely managed to exchange a stunned glance with his colleagues before feeling an impact against his chest, as something collided with him through his clothing. It was a brief, sharp sound, reminiscent of something cracking or being repelled. Before he could discern the nature of the disturbance, Xiao Lan crashed heavily to the ground. Alongside him fell a deformed bullet. Before anyone could comprehend the situation, a loud bang echoed. Startled, everyone flinched, yet fortunately, the shot was fired into the sky. Following the source of the gunfire, they witnessed a police officer clad in a bulletproof vest subduing the suspect, with several other officers rushing to assist. Redirecting his gaze, Xiaolon noticed many colleagues dashing towards him, their faces etched with panic as they reached out to cover his chest. Xiaolon, are you alright? Call an ambulance. Someone's been shot. Behind him, old Lu, tears streaming down his face, grasped Xiaolan's shoulder, pulling him into an embrace. Xiaolon, why did you jump in front of the bullet for me? You fool. Neither of us is wearing a bulletproof vest. Why so reckless? You're still young. Your culinary skills are exceptional. What were you trying to prove? After a few bewildered seconds, Xiaolon regained his composure. He moved his fingers slightly, retrieving the twisted bullet from the ground, murmuring, "Wait, don't cry just yet. I seem to be fine." All the sounds of fear, chaos, and cries abruptly ceased, replaced by a chorus of incredulous questions. Huh? Raising his aching arm, Xiaolon rummaged through his coat, pulling out a piece of shredded down. Damn it, my down jacket has been pierced. No, that wasn't the crux of the matter. He searched again and finally produced a smooth object that had cracked into two halves. The surrounding crowd, momentarily stunned, focused intently. A macadamia nut? Upon hearing its name, Xiaolon confirmed the true culprit. Ah, so it seems I was not mistaken. This is indeed the 100 bullet-catching macadamia nut from the Points Redemption store. This item was exorbitantly priced, costing him 3,000 points, and the system had failed to inform him of its pitfalls. Regardless of the target, any bullet must be caught. Moreover, it insisted on doing so in tandem with Xiaolon. Is this truly the notorious 100 bullet-catching method? Xiaolon felt himself to be the most unfortunate soul on the planet. He had assumed this object would serve as a means of self-defense, never anticipating it would protect others instead. Although the macadamia nut was indeed remarkable, absorbing the bullet's force and sparing Xiaolon any injury, it could not shield him from the force of gravity and the impact of the ground. Poor Xiaolon, barely awake, was suddenly launched into the air, only to crash back down. Thankfully, his winter attire was thick, otherwise he would have landed as a mere heap of flesh, his arms resembling shattered ice. Well, at least this macadamia nut had saved old Lu's life, rendering the fall somewhat worthwhile. Those around him rejoiced, oblivious to Xiaolan's predicament, exclaiming how fortunate he was. Oh my, this is incredible. The bullet struck the macadamia nut in your arms. This is even more impressive than a coin stopping a bullet. What if the criminal had fired dozens of rounds? I can hardly imagine. Xiaolon, your luck is truly extraordinary. Xiaolon listened with a bitter smile. Indeed. This 100 bulletproof macadamia nut is quite the trap. It can withstand a single bullet, but what if the opponent fires dozens? When it takes the first hit and lunges forward, it would surely be riddled with the remaining shots. At this moment, Xiaolon truly felt fortunate, almost invincible. Moreover, he resolved never to collect the entire set of items again. Xiaolon, you are incredibly brave. To dare to leap and shield yourself from bullets. You are embodying a movie protagonist. Witnessing such a rare occurrence with my own eyes is something I could boast about for a lifetime. The crowd, filled with curiosity and excitement, crowded around Xiaolon, only to be promptly pushed aside by old Lu. Everyone, do not touch him. Even wearing a bulletproof vest does not guarantee safety. Be cautious of any other injuries he may have. When is the ambulance arriving? Hurry and take him to the hospital for a checkup. As he was lifted onto a stretcher, Xiaolon felt no resistance. After such a heavy fall, it was reasonable to get checked out. What happened after the incident was unclear to Xiaolon, but he heard that morale soared after his departure. He was taken to the hospital for a full examination. The doctor examined his report and palpated his body a few times, then glanced at the report with a furrowed brow. Doctor, what is wrong with me? Xiaolon asked anxiously. Young man, don't just consume protein powder for muscle gain. You should also include some carbohydrates. Your weight could increase further. Are you a celebrity or a model? Such strict body management, not allowing even a hint of excess fat. Had you a bit more cushioning on your backside, you wouldn't need to be here at all. You have some bruising. Hurry home and apply ice. Other than that, there are no significant issues. As the doctor finished speaking, he turned to see several police officers rushing in, and his demeanor stiffened. Chapter 107. Set up shop for a few more days, and I'll give you a how Xiaolon noticed that it was old Lu and his companions, who had just completed their mission and rushed to check on him. Are you alright? Is there any fracture? Do you need to be hospitalized for recuperation? The district government leaders heard about your injury and requested your phone number. They'll visit you in your hospital room tomorrow. Xiaolon awkwardly glanced at the astonished doctor and cleared his throat. No need for hospitalization. The doctor said I can go home now. Everyone seemed a bit taken aback. Wasn't he shot? Does he truly have no injuries at all? Is the macadamia nut really that effective? Although the firearm was a homemade shotgun meant for birds, it was still a real weapon. Did you conduct a thorough examination? Don't hesitate to spend money on this. If there are any unreimbursable expenses, I'll cover them out of pocket, old Lu stated resolutely, grateful to Xiaolon for saving his life. If Xiaolon were to develop any lingering ailments, old Lu would carry that guilt for a lifetime. Upon hearing about the gunshot wound, the doctor was taken aback. Why didn't you mention this earlier? Gunshot wounds cannot be taken lightly. What if there are fragments lodged in your body? You should be hospitalized. Let us conduct further examinations tomorrow. In truth, the municipal hospital was conveniently located near Xiaolan's home, within walking distance. He had hoped to return home and rest. However, under old Lu's insistence, Xiaolan found himself unable to go home, and thus, he complied and was formally admitted for observation. In the words of old Lu, should any mishap occur in the dead of night, it would be prudent for the medical personnel to be prepared for swift intervention at the hospital. The following morning, government officials arrived bearing fruit as a gesture of sympathy. Under typical circumstances, it is rare for representatives from government departments to visit police officers injured in the line of duty. However, Xiaolan, in addition to her role as a police officer, also bears the weight of another identity as the proprietor of a handmade bun shop, a beacon of hope for Feng'an District, and a significant figure in its narrative. The director of the Cultural and Tourism Bureau personally came to visit. Upon entering, his gaze immediately fell upon Xiaolan's hands, and upon confirming that they were unscathed, he let out a sigh of relief. Learning that Xiaolan's examination revealed no serious issues and that she would be discharged today, the director could hardly contain his elation. After extending his well wishes, he finally articulated the purpose of his visit. He requested that his subordinates and others leave the room, creating an intimate space for him to speak candidly with Xiaolan. Comrade Xiao, to be frank, when we discovered your true identity as an undercover police officer, we were genuinely inclined to recruit you. Your impact on Feng'an District is nothing short of miraculous. It is not an exaggeration to say you have brought it back to life. This district is in dire need of talents like you. However, we have confirmed with your superior that your aspirations do not lie in business, but in serving the people. This is indeed commendable. You will undoubtedly shine in your role as a police officer, and we will fully support your decision. As Xiaolan listened, she sensed that the groundwork had been laid for further discussion. Indeed, the director hesitated for a moment before, with a troubled expression, he continued. However, you are aware that every day, over 1 million tourists travel great distances for you. The influx is akin to a tide, swift to arrive and equally swift to depart. We dare not hope for the flow to be perpetual. We merely wish to seize the moment at its peak. The director then displayed a somewhat sheepish demeanor as he expressed, we understand that your task was completed yesterday, and there is no need for you to set up your stall again. Nevertheless, the enthusiasm remains palpable. On behalf of the tourists and the entire Feng'an District, I would like to inquire if you might consider operating for a few more days. Until this weekend, it would provide a proper conclusion and an explanation for the visitors. After speaking, as if fearing a refusal from Xiaolan, the director adeptly revealed his ace. Of course, we would not ask Comrade Xiao to work without reward. For your outstanding contributions, we unanimously believe you deserve a housing incentive. What? Even though Xiaolan was accustomed to the grand gestures of the system and had witnessed significant matters, she was taken aback by the government's generosity. A house? Are you referring to a public rental housing allocation? After pondering, she concluded that the so-called house was likely a more reasonable offer of public rental accommodation. Public rental housing, a form of government welfare, allows for a maximum rental period of 5 years, after which one must vacate if they purchase a home. However, the director merely shook his head and responded with clarity. No, it is a brand new apartment, 66 square meters, on the 6th floor with an elevator. The government will purchase it outright for you, located in the Xinqingli community on New Street, in close proximity to the future commercial street. It is a new property, so it will be delivered in its raw state, allowing you to decorate it to your taste before moving in, and the title will be in your name. Xiaolan was left in a state of astonishment. He was aware that the housing prices in Feng'an District were relatively low, but it was still a residence. Based on his limited experience, he perceived that the government's finances were rather strained. They were so frugal that even the mineral water for meetings had been switched from large 596 milliliter bottles to smaller 380 milliliter ones. When had they become so generous? The director of the Cultural and Tourism Bureau noticed the glint of cunning in Xiaolan's eyes. Being a seasoned veteran, he understood how to achieve maximum impact with minimal expenditure. Xiaolan assumed that acquiring this property would cost at least several $100,000. In reality, it was secured for merely a few tens of thousands. There was no need for any dark dealings of collusion between officials and businessmen. The reputation of the bun shop owner was sufficient to offset all outstanding payments. Numerous real estate developers would eagerly wish for the bun shop owner to purchase properties in their complexes, as his endorsement would guarantee the sale of subsequent developments. If Xiaolan were to buy a house himself, those developers might even offer him one for free. However, the director of the Cultural and Tourism Bureau had already outmaneuvered him, with just a bit of inquiry and a gentle push. He elegantly acquired the property and ensnared Xiaolan in the process. The few tens of thousands spent were merely a subsidy from the city for exceptional talents, with annual living expenses exceeding 20,000, likely to be subsidized for 3 years. Instead of using funds to retain Xiaolan, it was far more prudent to convert that into property. With a home secured, how far could settling down be? Should Xiaolan's mindset evolve in the future? Altering his career aspirations, he would undoubtedly think of his residence in Feng'an District first. Looking even further ahead, upon retirement, should he wish to open a food business, It would certainly be near his home. Ingenious, simply brilliant, experience truly triumphs. Although Xiao Lan failed to perceive the ulterior motives of the individuals across from him, he was in no way at a loss. He merely needed to set up his stall for a couple more days to acquire a new home, conveniently located near the commercial street. While that commercial street had not yet developed, it was anticipated to flourish soon. Years ago, a city had skyrocketed to fame overnight, coinciding with a holiday and achieving a remarkable revenue of 6 billion over 3 days. Even when the fervor waned, they had amassed substantial profits. All things considered, Xiao Lan would only need to operate his stall for 2 weeks in Feng'an district. The influx of tourists would surely generate at least 10 billion for the area. With such a financial windfall, it was hard to believe they could not establish a commercial street. Chapter 108. The boss is gone. Oh, the boss is gone. Thus, the following day, Xiao Lan reappeared at the old street market. Countless tourists, upon seeing him, sniffed in the cold wind and rushed to surround him. Boss. At long last. You've returned. We were terrified when we heard you went to the hospital yesterday, thinking you wouldn't be able to set up for days. Boss, since you missed yesterday, can you compensate us today? I want to buy 20. Come on. The boss just went to the hospital yesterday, and you want to buy 20 today? Are you trying to exhaust him? I only need 10. Just 10 a day would satisfy me. I can't afford more. There were also workers from the electronic park who approached with trepidation. Boss, please don't disappear without a word like last time. We can no longer endure the anguish of losing you. Indeed, Xiao Lan, with a smile that belied a hint of guilt, assured us it wouldn't happen. Heaven knows, he intended to carry on until this Sunday. He wouldn't return the following week. However, since he had promised everyone not to vanish without reason, he thought it best to concoct an excuse. 2 days later, on a Monday morning, countless workers faced not only the torment of returning to their jobs, but also the crushing blow to their spirits. The Bun Group and the Pig Trotters Group simultaneously dispatched identical messages. To all members, I sincerely thank you for your support of my humble business. Regrettably, due to my brother's deteriorating brain condition, I must temporarily set aside my business to seek renowned doctors in the big city. Though it pains me greatly, I hope you take care of yourselves, and may our paths cross again in the future. Before the group message was sent, Liu Si caught a glimpse of it and was puzzled. Wait a moment. Isn't fabricating an illness for your brother rather implausible? Who is your brother, anyway? Xiao Lan exchanged a meaningful glance with Liu Si, while the other members, the hidden talents, dared not meet his gaze, fearful of bursting into laughter. No worries. They will believe it. With that, Xiao Lan sent out the message and set it as a group announcement. That day, countless individuals awoke to their phones and let out a wail of despair. Some, accustomed to scrolling through their phones while using the restroom, suddenly encountered the dreadful news after dropping their trousers, issuing a heart-rending scream. Those outside, alarmed by the commotion, kicked open the bathroom door, asking, "What's wrong? What happened? Did something burst?" The face that emerged was more tragic than a weeping pear blossom, resembling a bloodied chrysanthemum, tears streaming down profusely. The boss is gone. Oh, the boss is gone. What boss? Who is left? The Bun boss. What? Oh no. Another individual joined the ranks of those in tears. The group messages surged like fish desperate for water. Oh no. The boss has truly made a fortune. He now has the means to go to the big city for treatment. What? I said the other day that the boss going to the hospital was a bad omen. Indeed, this is a sign of parting. Ah, so the day the boss went to the hospital wasn't for his own ailment, but rather for his brother's? The local hospital couldn't treat him, so he must go to a larger one? Wait, is the brother not just an ordinary mentally challenged person? Is there another brain ailment? The boss is truly an extraordinary brother. Though it pains us, we respect and bless him. We await your return. I apologize. I know I am selfish, but couldn't the boss have prepared enough frozen buns before leaving, allowing relatives to sell them until his return? It is well known that the boss can prepare a bun in 3 seconds. With 24 hours in a day, granting him 8 hours for sleep leaves 16 hours, equating to 57,600 seconds. At 3 seconds per bun, that means he could produce 19,200 buns. With determination, making 20,000 is not out of reach. Therefore, boss, you only need to spare 1 day for bun preparation. We wouldn't mind enjoying your frozen buns. Exactly. I wouldn't mind indulging in the boss's frozen buns either. Xiao Lan observed the naive remarks of his companions and shook his head in resignation. He silently bid them farewell and, with a ruthless decision, set the group messages to do not disturb, promptly exiting his alternate account. The Baozi vendor and the pig trotter stall owner had become mere memories. Today, he was known as Sir Lan. Placing his phone into his pocket, Xiao Lan strode into the Eastern District Police Station, where he was greeted with rounds of applause and cheers from his colleagues. "Brother Lan, you have finally returned," they exclaimed. "The 2-week period has concluded. Welcome back, Brother Lan. Congratulations on successfully completing another mission. The internet sensation is actually you. Your heroic act of shielding bullets has spread throughout the city's police stations." His colleagues raised their thumbs in admiration. The entire precinct was well aware of Xiao Lan's exploits in Feng'an district. Their enthusiasm stemmed not only from his valor, but also from the fact that he was the fabled owner of the handmade Baozi shop. With the boss back, how could the Baozi be far behind? Today marked the commencement of the Special Operation Against Theft commendation ceremony at the Municipal Public Security Bureau. Xiaolan, as an exceptionally outstanding newcomer during this operation, was chosen to represent the Eastern District Police Station and receive accolades on stage. No one in the precinct had any objections. To win the hearts of his colleagues, one must also satisfy their appetites. Presently, the hearts of everyone in the precinct were firmly held in Xiaolan's grasp. Who could object? Considering that Xiaolan would be working undercover for a considerable time, with tasks akin to those of an undercover agent. His colleagues prepared sunglasses and masks for him to wear while accepting his award, treating him with the same regard as those undertaking perilous missions. Standing on the stage, facing the distinguished representatives from all police divisions and stations in the city, Xiaolan listened as his achievements were acknowledged. Comrade Xiaolan has demonstrated exceptional performance in this operation and is awarded the second-class individual merit with a reward of 5,000 yuan. He also receives the third-class collective merit with a reward of 10,000 yuan. Thunderous applause erupted, and many gazes were filled with envy at the substantial rewards. Simultaneously, the system in Xiaolan's mind initiated the reward calculation. Ding. Statistics complete. A total of 250 criminals apprehended in this operation. This includes 150 D-class criminals, rewarding 750,000 yuan and 500 points. 70 C-class criminals, rewarding 400,000 yuan and 14,000 points. 20 B-class criminals, rewarding 1,000 yuan and 10,000 points. 10 A-class criminals, rewarding 1,000 yuan and 10,000 points. Please continue your diligent efforts. Perhaps due to the magnitude of this reward, the system thoughtfully provided a summary. Total reward accumulated: 150,000 yuan, 41,500 points. Xiaolan gazed at the figures displayed on the panel, feeling a surge of excitement that made his legs tremble. What a bountiful harvest! Such a fortune made enduring a bullet truly worthwhile. Coupled with the previous reward of 1,640,000 yuan from the system, he now boasted a wealth of 5,790,000 yuan. Fortunately, with sunglasses and a mask adorning his face, Xiaolan managed to hide the grin that threatened to stretch from ear to ear. The overwhelming fortune had left his mind in a daze, to the extent that he failed to notice his awkward steps as he exited the stage. Those who observed his discomposure below responded with understanding smiles. It was said that Xiaolan was merely a probationary officer, and he had scarcely begun his career before earning an individual second-class merit and a collective third-class merit. Who wouldn't be thrilled over such an achievement? Moreover, he had received a bonus of 15,000, nearly equivalent to 3 months' salary. Who, fresh in the workforce, could resist the exhilaration of acquiring such a substantial sum? Beneath their seats, Lia Si, Lu Dongbin, and Hu Lai struggled to contain their excitement, desperately attempting to sit upright without flailing their limbs. They too had garnered a collective third-class merit, which came with a $1,000 bonus. Having worked alongside Xiaolan for a few days, their tasks revolved around simple errands like grocery shopping and preparing fillings. They exerted only physical effort, faced no danger, and enjoyed excellent meals. Their contributions felt akin to earning a living while reclining. In that moment, they were utterly enamored with Xiaolan. Were it not for the inappropriateness of the occasion, they would have tossed him into the air several times over. Thankfully, their masks and sunglasses shielded their expressions. Otherwise, the four of them seated together would have appeared as a quartet of maniacal grins, a sight that would surely provoke laughter if captured in a photograph. Onlookers might have mistaken them for 4 ruffians infiltrating the police force. Fortunately, the police department was resolute in nurturing them towards specialized undercover roles, ensuring they were avoided in photographs to prevent revealing their identities. Once out of uniform, their freedom of expression would not tarnish the police's image. However, a tiny seed of curiosity lingered in their minds. While it was understandable for them to wear masks, why was the precinct chief also masked? Was he unwell? No wonder he appeared so much slimmer in person than in photographs. Although their undercover operations could not be publicly disclosed, the necessary commendation would still be issued internally. Soon, the police intranet's updates featured news regarding a special operation against theft in Fenghan district, highlighting the outstanding performance of the undercover officers. Consequently, that day, the lunchtime conversation among police officers nationwide shifted to this very topic. Have you seen today's police updates? Not yet, it's Monday. And I've been swamped with work. Who has time to look? Their essay big scoop. How could you not check it out? The owner of that popular handmade bun shop online is one of us. What? Really? Some officers were less active online, but the younger ones were avid surfers. Upon hearing this, they quickly gathered around. What do you mean, one of us? Are you saying that the bun shop owner is a police academy graduate now selling buns? Or did he start selling buns after leaving the force? The initial speaker, with an air of mystery, shook his head, then proudly declared, "You're all in the dark." Neither. That owner is an undercover officer on a mission. He inadvertently became an internet sensation. Goodness. With such culinary skills, wouldn't he consider resigning to pursue this venture full-time? Would he? Previously, some peers inadvertently became internet celebrities and, unable to resist temptation, changed careers. Although I do not comprehend the situation fully, it appears they have not yet resigned. Otherwise, they would not have made it to the report. Perhaps the local police department recognized their talent and employed certain methods to retain them. Many discussions ultimately converge on the same question. Will Xiaolon succumb to temptation and resign? The pursuit of fame and fortune is human nature, yet as an undercover officer, it is clear that such aspirations do not apply. For instance, even with significant contributions, the report of commendation did not disclose their full name. Many officers, after digesting this news, believe they will lose a comrade, while the catering industry may gain another internet celebrity business owner. The East District Bureau is also concerned about such occurrences, prompting them to implement measures to retain talent. Upon returning to the bureau, Xiaolon was informed that director and requested him in the office. Curious, yet apprehensive, he pondered the reasons for the summons, recalling his previous mishap and feeling a twinge of anxiety. Surely, it couldn't be a matter of retribution? Cautiously glancing through the partially opened door, he observed the director seated at his desk, engrossed in a report. Taking a deep breath, Xiaolon gently knocked twice on the half-open door and entered upon the director's invitation, closing the door behind him. As he approached, he noted that the director still wore a mask, indicating he was indeed unwell. Director gestured for him to sit, and Xiaolon dared not say much. Quietly pulling out a chair and taking a seat across from the desk, he suddenly noticed the report in the director's hands was evidently a printed version of the electronic report he had sent to Lao Lu. His heart raced. Feeling the pressure of facing authority, a sensation he had not encountered since being called to the teacher's office in his youth. However, as soon as the director spoke, all of Xiaolan's tension dissipated. I have reviewed your report and listened to Lao Lu's briefing. The income from your stall is indeed substantial, yet the cost of ingredients is also high. When balanced, the profit is minimal, considering the effort you exert. Working during the day at the stall and at night with overtime while enduring various threats, I have advocated for the stall profits to be considered as team compensation, which has received city approval. For future tasks, you, as the main responsible party, will receive a larger share, with the remainder adjustable based on each individual's performance during the task. However, I hope you do not lose sight of your original intentions, prioritizing the successful completion of tasks over the pursuit of greater profits. Director paused, seemingly realizing his tone was overly stern, and softened his approach. I understand that being a police officer does not yield the same financial rewards as becoming an internet celebrity, and it is indeed more arduous. An internet celebrity can earn millions with a mere smile, while a police officer works tirelessly throughout the year, averaging around 100,000. Chapter 109. How did Director manage to enjoy breakfast at his place? However, Director shifted the conversation, stating, the development of the tertiary industry is invariably founded upon a stable society. When the world is in chaos, who has the heart to indulge in pleasures? Social roles differ, and arduous tasks must always have someone to undertake them. Responsibilities must be shouldered by someone. Our profession may not be as glamorous as the world of fame and fortune, but I can assure you, dear Xiaolon, that our nation has never neglected those who contribute. Therefore, you may confidently forge ahead, regardless of the path you choose. It will be smooth. When you don the police uniform, you are our comrade. When you remove it, you are among the people we protect. Director N's words were so grand that they nearly brought Xiaolon to tears. Yet, just as her eyes began to glisten, she caught a familiar scent wafting from Director N's mouth. Could it be the aroma of the old marinade from her home? Ever since Xiaolon ceased her business of making braised pig trotters, that pot of marinade had become a staple in her household. With the marinade on hand, meal preparation became a breeze. A simple purchase of fresh meat could yield a variety of braised dishes: braised chicken feet, braised pig trotters, braised pork belly, braised chicken legs, whatever one desires. If one tires of rich meats, a quick braise of lotus root, enoki mushrooms, dried tofu, or potatoes would tantalize the senses. Should one crave something lighter, a spoonful of marinade added during stir-frying would infuse even the simplest of dishes with delightful flavor. The laziest method involved boiling soft noodles in plain water, adding a spoonful of the old marinade, and sprinkling some chopped green onions. Breakfast, or a late-night snack, would be effortlessly prepared. Even with such a hasty approach, the old man would leave the bowl gleaming, with not a drop of broth remaining. To safeguard the marinade from the old man's indulgence, Xiaolon had secured the iron barrel with a lock. Only when she cooked could she unlock it. This morning, before leaving, Xiaolon prepared a bowl of noodle soup, savoring a serving before heading out. Unlike the hasty preparation of plain noodle soup, this dish was richly adorned. The broth was cooked separately from the noodles, which only required blanching in boiling water. The broth was infused with shiitake mushrooms, daylilies, black fungus, button mushrooms, tomatoes, eggs, and pork, simmered for at least 20 minutes. With an additional spoonful of the secret marinade from the pig trotters, resulting in a thick, luscious concoction. Mixing this rich broth with the blanched noodles required no further seasoning. Even the most ordinary noodles could transform into a culinary delight. Xiaolon could discern that Director carried the scent of her noodle soup. And it was not just any ordinary flavor, but one imbued with a secret twist. Even the mask could not conceal it. Could it not be from her home? Xiaolon genuinely wished to inquire how Director and had sampled her breakfast, considering it was just the two of them at home. However, the current atmosphere and setting were not conducive to such questions. Thus, with a heart full of curiosity, Xiaolon departed the office. As soon as she left, Director and promptly set down the paper documents, stealthily closed the door, and removed his mask. It was indeed a challenge to work in the same precinct while having to conceal such matters. One could only wonder how long this ruse could be maintained. Oh, considering that my father specially delivered a bowl of clear broth noodles to me this morning, I shall acquiesce to his wishes. The mere thought of that fragrant broth stirs a pang of longing in Director and stomach. While the culinary delights brought by my father are indeed delectable, there is an incessant feeling that they are somehow insufficient. I wish I could relinquish this directorial position to my father, allowing him to reside comfortably at home, where he would surely feast to his heart's content. However, my father's reasoning is that he fears excessive indulgence may hinder digestion, advocating instead for smaller portions. Well, this rationale seems somewhat scientific, as doctors also recommend more frequent, smaller meals. Nevertheless, there lingers a sense that my father's offerings are always missing something. Take today's clear broth noodles, for instance. I could detect the essence of mushrooms, yet not a single mushroom piece graced the noodles. The flavors were so intricately layered that my taste buds struggled to keep up, yet my eyes quickly discerned the lack of variety in the bowl, just noodles and broth. Oh well, at least there is something to eat. As for the peculiar aroma of the noodles that seemed reminiscent of a different dish, Xiaolon had yet to ponder it deeply when uplifting news arrived, distracting him entirely. The police department granted Xiaolon and his companions a 2-day respite to adjust their disrupted circadian rhythms from their previous mission. They were informed prior to their break that upon their return, new tasks would await them. The four friends joyfully divided the extra profits from their recent ventures and luxuriated at home for 2 blissful days. Unimportant matters were swiftly cast aside. According to the law of conservation of happiness, where there is joy, there must also be discontent. The Fenghan district, having lost its beloved bun vendor, was akin to the West losing Jerusalem. Tourist numbers plummeted, and the streamers ceased their broadcasts. Yet, many held hope for Xiaolan's return, believing it to be a matter of days, or, at most, a month before he would be back. Consequently, the members of Qin Gaojia's group, titled Greatness Needs No Words, continued to swell in number daily. Qin Gaojia remained unfazed, until one fateful day, the count of group members surpassed the total personnel of the company. He was utterly taken aback. The others in the group were equally astonished. Wait, why are there so many people? Isn't this an internal group? Who let outsiders in? Huh, this is an internal group? I heard it was a delivery and purchasing group for handmade buns. Half the company has joined. Wait, I think I've discovered something. Did someone add their alternate account? How did I not think of that? It increases the chances of snatching red envelopes. Qin, speak up. We face both internal strife and external threats. The nation is in peril. Qin Gaojia was left utterly speechless. The return of the bun vendor was shrouded in uncertainty, yet here they were, embroiled in their squabbles. With an average of 800 watchful eyes per person, the group was currently bustling with activity. Leaving it idle would be a pity. Unbeknownst to them, a vibrant community had formed here, gathering numerous food enthusiasts from the building. Rather than neglecting it, why not harness this potential to promote the Fenghan district? With a fleeting thought, Qin Gaojia modified the group name to Fenghan District Gourmet Delivery and Purchasing Group. He then sent a message within the group. Until the handmade bun vendor returns, let us utilize this group for purchasing other delicacies. Numerous streamers have reviewed various signature dishes from Fenghan District, many of which I have yet to taste. We can band together to find a delivery service for these culinary treasures. Of course, we can also explore the gastronomic offerings from other districts of Fengling City. This proposal was met with unanimous approval. Given the group's considerable membership, expelling anyone seemed impractical, especially since the petty thieves of Fenghan District had vanished after a significant crackdown that instilled fear in wrongdoers and became widely known across the nation. For the foreseeable future, shopping there would be free from the fear of theft. When the handmade bun vendor eventually returns, he could simply create a new internal group. Meanwhile, Zhou Haochuan faced gastrointestinal woes, but thrived in his career. After parting ways with Xiaolon, he found himself grappling with withdrawal symptoms. Each night, as he live-streamed gaming, thoughts of buns consumed him, while his mouth incessantly munched on other snacks. Perhaps due to his fervent efforts and an insatiable appetite akin to a perpetual motion machine. Many affluent sponsors recognized his potential and sought to invest in advertising within his gaming streams. Although the promotional content was rather peculiar, entirely food-related and unrelated to gaming, he welcomed the opportunity to earn some income. During this bun withdrawal phase, regardless of sponsorship, he needed to munch to endure. Yet in the quiet hours of midnight, memories of the past occasionally haunted Zhou Haochuan. He recalled how he had proactively promoted a video extolling the virtues of the handmade buns, and tears of regret would flow. Had he not fervently advertised the buns online, the vendor might not have amassed wealth so quickly and departed. If given a second chance, he would have chosen to purchase all of the vendor's buns while they were still obscure, freezing them to savor until the end of the world. Gazing at the corner where a freezer capable of holding 5 people stood, with a solitary bun resting inside. Zhou Haochuan felt a pang of sorrow. The freezer was an utter waste of money. Another individual who shared in the folly of extravagant spending was the prominent streamer, Tao Ge. In comparison to Zhou Haochuan, Tao Ge's financial misadventures were monumental. He had purchased several properties solely to await Xiaolan's return, only to find that after securing the homes, the person had vanished. In his livestream, fans ridiculed him as a colossal fool. Tao Ge, you bought those houses for nothing. You waited for a rabbit. Only to find it woke up and scampered off into the forest. Perhaps the bun vendor, now thriving in a big city, won't want to return, finding the conveniences of urban life more appealing. I heard the vendor was an apprentice in a big city. Isn't he more familiar with it? With his skill? Coming to a small place is beneath him. In the face of such mockery from netizens, Tao Ge remained unfazed. Big cities are merely a handful: Beijing, Shanghai, Shenzhen, and Guangzhou. I own properties in all of them. If not, I shall simply acquire another. Those who had previously mocked him now found themselves speechless. One possesses wealth, the other artistry. Yet the fool is none other than myself. Perhaps it is the confidence bestowed by his riches that emboldens Tao Ge, who calmly states, I have already messaged the boss to inquire which city to visit for treatment. I am merely awaiting his reply. However, he seems perpetually occupied, often neglecting to respond to my messages. As he speaks, Tao Ge produces another phone to display his messaging interface to the group. As his finger glides upward, everyone witnesses a plethora of one-sided messages sent to Xiaolan, reminiscent of a barrage of notifications. Suddenly, Tao Ge discovers a reply from the dumpling vendor amid his flood of messages. Oh, it turns out the boss did reply to me. The context reveals that Tao Ge had asked if he could pose a question for an interview. Tao Ge, many netizens wish to interview you regarding a matter. With your culinary skills, why would you choose to come to a small city like Fengling? Surely, large cities abound with affluent individuals willing to pay you multiples of what you earn here, affording greater opportunities for development, would they not? Below lies the dumpling vendor's response. Dumpling vendor. There is a principle in education known as education without distinction. As a chef, I adhere to the same philosophy. Diners should not be categorized by status or wealth, but treated equally. My food is not crafted for a select demographic, but rather for all. The pricing of dishes reflects their inherent value. Regardless of who you are, provided you pay the same price, you shall receive the same exquisite taste and joy. Thus, where my food is sold or to whom it is sold is of little consequence, as long as there are patrons willing to purchase it. This inquiry is particularly significant as it encapsulates Xiaolan's innermost thoughts. Even at the zenith of his previous life, he never allowed his culinary artistry to become the exclusive domain of the elite. His restaurant was accessible to all, with patrons queuing for reservations. No affluent individual would be allowed to cut in line or be charged extra, nor would a common person be treated with disdain for ordering less expensive dishes. The wealthy possess myriad avenues for pleasure, while the choices for the ordinary are often woefully limited. Individuals like Tao Ge can traverse the globe, savoring diverse cuisines, or employ renowned chefs from the 8 culinary traditions to create daily variations. In contrast, ordinary people might splurge on a lavish establishment only on special occasions, or, on an ordinary day, serendipitously encounter a conscientious vendor, leaving a lasting impression for years. Conversely, should fortune frown upon them, a visit to an overpriced, subpar establishment might ruin their day, dampening the spirit of celebration altogether. Xiaolan aspires for his culinary creations to evoke joy, leaving profound memories in the limited lives of others. This was true in his past life, and it remains so in this one. Chapter 110. A firm resolve against despair. During his days of rest at home, Xiaolan indulged in the luxurious expenditure of his points. With over 40,000 points, he spent 500 to elevate his snack cart by 2 levels. The once fiercely competitive food cart has now unlocked a full recording function and upgraded to a new aesthetic, a sophisticated 4-wheeled snack cart. The vehicle resembles a small cart, featuring a hollow square compartment at the rear, capable of selling from both the front and back, while also allowing for the glass to be closed, permitting only one side window to be opened. Additionally, the Points Redemption Mall has finally unveiled new offerings. The indestructible purple clay pot, priced at 1,000 points for the large pot and 500 for the small one. The universal dishwasher, available for 6,000 points each. The refusal to bear the burden wok, costing 7,000 points. The Baruto gas stove, listed at 8,000 points each. Such exorbitant prices. Upon seeing the costs, Xiaolan felt a wave of dizziness. Initially, the 40,000 points seemed ample, yet the prices in the Points Mall have skyrocketed. Now, how can 40,000 points withstand such expenditure? I am curious to discover the features of these new kitchen utensils that justify such steep prices. Upon clicking the details for the indestructible purple clay pot, I read, uncrackable, leak-proof, resistant to cold and heat, shock-proof and drop-resistant, explosion-proof and bulletproof. A pot that lasts for 3 generations. Even when the owner departs, the pot remains. Slogan, as long as I do not take my own life. No one can take it from me. Xiaolan gasped in astonishment. Goodness, if this purple clay pot were used as a helmet, it could withstand even a tank's tread without faltering, wouldn't it? Buy, it is a necessity. If the 1,000-point item is so remarkable, how extraordinary must the more expensive items be? He hastily opened the details for the universal dishwasher. I wash vigorously, wash madly, wash with fervor, I wash cups with fervor. Self-cleaning as I go, ecstatic in my washing, a grand wash indeed. Give me a milliliter of water, and I can clean the entire earth. Slogan, please refrain from inserting strange items. Xiaolon widened his eyes, astonished. Is it truly that water efficient? Can a mere milliliter of water clean dishes effectively? How maddening. I am so tempted to purchase it for a trial. Gazing at the dishwasher's cavernous entrance, it appeared compatible with the purple clay pot, allowing for hands-free liberation with just a toss. Buy it is a must. In the next moment, Xiaolon decisively purchased the most expensive Baruto gas stove. There was no other reason. He merely believed that high prices must equate to high quality. Upon receiving it, he was thoroughly satisfied. This gas stove boasts multiple burners, with 2 rows of 5 burners each. Effectively, he had acquired 10 burners for 8,000 points, which is quite economical. Yet, a product from the system should not be so simple. Surely, there must be some ingenious features? Upon clicking the details page, Xiaolon's jaw dropped. Laughable. It can't ignite at all. It merely generates some warmth. The fire is merely an illusion. Slogan, whether real fire or false fire. As long as it doesn't hinder profits, that's what matters. Why does this gas stove seem to convey an underlying message? It feels rather odd, doesn't it? Xiaolon swiftly connected the Baruto gas stove with the endless gas canister and initiated a test. Soon, he comprehended the true meaning of the description. It turned out that the flames emitted by this gas stove are indeed false. Even when flammable items are placed upon it, they do not catch fire. However, when using the system-provided purple clay pot and wok, they heat up instantly, demonstrating results indistinguishable from real flames. This arrangement is quite satisfactory, effectively eliminating the potential for accidental fires. The system has provided him with an array of kitchenware, and Xiaolon already harbors a vague notion of what he might sell. It all hinges on the specifics of the new task. Soon, the details of the new assignment were unveiled. This woman is the mistress of an economic criminal, residing in an upscale community in Fengling South District. On the eve of our planned apprehension, the economic offender sensed the impending exposure and fled by boat. However, the vessel encountered a ferocious storm, resulting in a catastrophic wreck, with all aboard perishing without a trace. During our investigation, we uncovered that this economic criminal was also involved in espionage activities and might possess knowledge of numerous clandestine communication methods with spies. Although he is presumed to have perished at sea, the absence of a recovered body suggests he might have faked his death to evade capture. His mistress, the woman in the photograph, is 8 months pregnant and showing signs of potential preterm labor. Given the man's condition of oligospermia, conceiving a child is a rare occurrence for him, making this pregnancy particularly significant. We speculate that if he is indeed alive and the child is born, he may very well return to see the infant. Thus, Xiaolon, your task is to remain stationed outside the upscale community, feigning a street vendor role while discreetly monitoring every suspicious individual entering or exiting the premises. Xiaolon had no objections to the mission but posed a crucial question on behalf of the group. Are you certain that the criminal would risk capture by returning? I mean, given his condition, would he not suspect that the child might not be his, thus refraining from taking such a risk? Lao Lu was unfazed by Xiaolan's inquiry, as many shared this line of thought, including the criminal himself. Indeed, he had harbored suspicions. Our intelligence revealed that they had visited a hospital 4 months into the pregnancy for amniocentesis to conduct a paternity test, which confirmed that the child was indeed his biological offspring. Furthermore, it was rumored that they subsequently conducted an illicit gender examination, which revealed the child to be a son, whom they cherished dearly. As Lao Lu spoke, a gleeful glimmer of gossip lit up his face, and he chuckled mischievously a couple of times. Allow me to share a sensational tidbit, which underscores just how dearly they value that unborn child. The residence currently occupied by the mistress within the upscale community was, in fact, the marital home of the criminal and his legal wife, thus not acquired through illicit means and therefore not confiscated. Due to the mistress's pregnancy, the couple had specifically brought her back to care for her. While Xiaolon remained unfazed during the earlier revelations, the latter statement sent tumultuous waves through his mind. What? The couple is caring for the pregnant mistress? This news is utterly explosive. Has the world truly descended to such madness? Lao Lu, however, remained remarkably composed, having already processed the shock. Indeed, presently, the man's whereabouts are unknown, leaving only his legal wife and his pregnant mistress to cohabitate. The situation is, in short, rather complicated. You must sense the immense value they place on this child, correct? For a moment, Xiaolon found himself at a loss, uncertain whether their extravagant lifestyle stemmed from wealth or from the reckless abandon of a criminal. Forget it, since it has been confirmed that the other party holds an immense regard for the unborn child and is highly likely to return to see the child. It would be prudent to remain vigilant and wait. I understand, Captain. I shall make the necessary arrangements for action immediately. Wait. Old Lu uttered the final instruction of the day. Your assistant for this stall will be Li AC and his 2 companions. If you find that additional manpower is required, you may request assistance from the southern branch. This time, it was the southern branch that specifically requested your assistance. So you only need to synchronize the task progress with their supervisor. Remember, they are in need of our support, so if you encounter any grievances, do not hesitate to call me. A familiar sentiment, a familiar protectiveness. With this in mind, Xiao Lan felt invigorated. Understood. Thank you, Captain. The following day, an upgraded high-end food truck slowly approached the vicinity of an upscale residential community. This elegant community, named Greenview Garden, is situated near the bustling commercial center of the Fengling South District. At the heart of the commercial hub stands a shopping complex, approximately 5 to 6 stories tall. The upper levels feature luxury brand apparel and accessories, while the mid-level offers a variety of chain restaurants, and the ground floor is dotted with numerous snack stalls. The location where Xiao Lan and her team set up shop is on the outskirts of this commercial area, outside the shopping complex itself. A row of snack stalls lines the exterior, encircling the building. In this prime location, even the area outside the building incurs a rental fee, albeit at a lower rate than that of the interior. Xiao Lan meticulously selected her spot, which faced the entrance of Greenview Garden. This location, relatively secluded, sees foot traffic concentrated at the entrances of the shopping center. Here, in the residential area, only a handful of stalls were designated to minimize disturbance to the residents. Many tourists, aware of the scarcity of stalls, would turn back before even reaching this point. Hence, the previous owner of this stall found it unprofitable and sought to sublease it. Coincidentally, Xiao Lan was in need, and she took over the remaining half-month lease from the original owner. Today marked the day of their handover. Chapter 111. Selling claypot rice and Huangmin chicken rice. The previous owner's stall resembled a permanent storefront, aesthetically pleasing on the outside, yet beneath, it was mobile, resting on 4 wheels. Once the wheels were unlocked, it could be easily pushed away. Before departing, the original owner noticed the 2 rows of stoves atop Xiao Lan's food truck and curiously inquired, "What do you plan to sell here?" While working, Xiao Lan replied, "I will be selling claypot rice and Huangmin chicken rice." The original owner exclaimed in disbelief, as if questioning his own hearing. He opened his mouth, seemingly wanting to say something, but upon reflection, he thought that selling anything here would be futile given the lack of customers. Thus, he refrained from elaborating, merely responding, Oh, that sounds good." As the original owner departed, the unspoken words he had held back were already understood by Xiao Lan. Having been a businessperson in her past life, she possessed a keen acumen for commerce. The underlying message was clear: selling claypot rice in this location held no promise of success. A mere glance around the surrounding stalls reveals which ventures hold promise for success. One stall sells ice cream, another coffee, yet another offers milk tea. And there is one selling toast, each a cold delicacy. They all provide items that can be conveniently taken away, indicating that patrons linger for only the briefest moments, often succumbing to impulse as they pass by. In stark contrast, Xiao Lan has chosen to set up a table here, offering staple foods. This seems rather foolish. The former stall owner likely believed that Xiao Lan was unaware that the residents of the nearby community do not frequent street vendors, which is why he foolishly chose to sell claypot rice. He refrained from advising Xiao Lan, fearing it might dissuade him from renting the stall. However, Xiao Lan remains unconcerned. His intention is to complete his task, and if he attracts even a handful of customers, it will suffice to maintain his cover. The quality of business is of little consequence to him. Moreover, given Xiao Lan's culinary skills, it is unlikely that his business would falter. He fears instead that it may flourish too abundantly. Some who do not understand him believe he is deliberately underwhelming his offerings to avoid drawing too many customers, thinking that if he made his food less palatable, it would serve his purpose. Yet, he adheres to his principles. When he cooks, he must do so with utmost dedication, for he cannot betray the ingredients or the patrons who have paid for their meals. This is his dignity as a chef. Whether or not he garners customers or profits is secondary to him. He embraces a philosophy of serendipity, without pressure. His food cart was assembled in a mere 10 minutes, with 4 tables set up and all necessary items in place. Now he must simply keep watch. Serving as an observer is both tedious and requires vigilance. In a small group chat named The Hidden Dragon and the Phoenix Chicks, he sent a location pin. "Have you all agreed on the shift schedule? Who will come to assist during lunch? Meals provided." Before long, the group erupted with messages. "Leah C. Me. I have experience. I was a helper when we sold buns. I think we don't need anyone else. I can manage all day." "Who lie? Brother Lon. Don't listen to his nonsense. His foolish demeanor is too distinctive. Keeping him around will inevitably expose your identity. I suggest we avoid having him assist this time." "Lu Dongbin. I second that." The group continued to bicker, with no clear resolution in sight. Xiao Lan, indifferent to their squabble, recognized there was still ample time, and the workload was light, so he let them argue on. He began to leisurely prepare the ingredients for the day. He procured 20 small clay pots and 2 large ones, which should suffice. The small pots are designated for the clay pot rice, while the large ones will be used for braised chicken. Both dishes are classic culinary staples from distinct regional cuisines. Braised chicken belongs to Shandong cuisine, while clay pot rice is part of Cantonese culinary traditions. The key to braised chicken lies in the method of braising. When dissected, the character for braise comprises a fire on the left and a cover on the right, signifying the act of sealing the pot tightly, like shutting a door. and using low heat to cook the ingredients thoroughly. Thus, braising inherently requires time. Nowadays, many who prepare braised chicken hastily use iron pots, cooking the dish with the lid on for just 2 or 3 minutes, sacrificing the necessary sealing and duration for expediency. Restaurants and takeout services, in their quest for rapid service, inevitably abandon more time-consuming methods. Many remain oblivious to the fact that authentic Huangmin chicken rice is not prepared in an iron pot, but rather stewed in a clay pot. Furthermore, the alternate names for this dish, such as spicy chicken casserole and rich spicy chicken rice, are becoming increasingly obscure. This is precisely why Xiaolan offers 2 distinct culinary styles. Both require the same indispensable clay pot. The term casserole in clay pot rice refers specifically to the small clay vessel used in its preparation. The clay pot possesses unique advantages that other cookware cannot replicate. It boasts excellent heat retention and even heat distribution, enabling it to preserve the original flavors of the ingredients to the fullest extent, amidst the continuous and uniform heating. The chicken pieces and potatoes in the Huangmin chicken absorb the broth heartily, becoming plump and succulent. At this early hour, still shy of 10 o'clock, there is no rush for the clay pot rice. Instead, Xiaolan can focus on the time-consuming Huangmin chicken. He retrieves the pre-prepared chicken and potatoes, along with other accompaniments, from the freezer. Given the limited space of the food cart, he has taken care of the washing, chopping, and marinating at home in advance. Traditionally, tender chicken thigh meat is used for Huangmin chicken. However, Xiaolan prefers a varied texture and thus opts for a whole chicken. The chicken is first deprived of its head, then its posterior, followed by the removal of the entire neck. Although the neck could be retained, the abundant lymphatic tissue beneath the skin renders it less palatable. With minimal meat on the neck, it is best discarded. Many takeout establishments fail to remove the neck, and some even purchase necks in bulk for their cost-effectiveness, resulting in customers receiving a dish predominantly composed of necks rather than the desired chicken meat. Others resort to using frozen chicken thighs, which may appear plump and tender, yet the reality is far less appealing. The freezing process damages the cellular structure, leading to the evaporation of juices, denaturation of proteins, oxidation of fats, and a loss of nutritional value and flavor. If there is no unpleasant odor, it is already a mark of relatively acceptable frozen meat. In contrast, the chicken Xiaolan procures comes from the free-range chickens of Qingqing Orchard, a premium choice at 200 yuan each. Hence, he makes sure not to waste the neck, transforming it into marinated chicken necks as a snack for Lao Deng, preventing him from concocting schemes to sneak bites. Returning to the task at hand, Xiaolan places the no-blame big wok atop the Born brand gas stove, heating oil until it reaches a boiling point before adding the drained potato cubes for frying. This method of frying is a culinary secret employed by many restaurants. It not only locks in the moisture of the ingredients, rendering the dish tender and succulent, but also enhances the vibrant colors of the components while eliminating any undesirable odors. The potatoes are fried until their surfaces are slightly wrinkled and golden, then removed for later use. The remaining oil is not wasted. A few pieces of rock sugar are added directly. The pristine, crystalline rock sugar is sautéed over low heat until it melts, releasing bright orange bubbles. Once the bubbles diminish and the color turns to a deep reddish brown, the blanched chicken is added for a quick stir-fry. This simple step imbues the chicken with an exceptionally radiant yellow hue, without the infusion of any advanced technology or excessive flair. The chicken appeared as though it had been graced by a beauty filter, enticing the onlooker with an irresistible allure. Subsequently, Xiaolan poured in the pre-prepared sauce, stirring it all together. With a sizzle, it was as if Pandora's box had been opened. Yet, this time, what emerged from the box was not disease or calamity, but a captivating little sprite that stirred one's senses, ensnared one's spirit, and tested one's resolve. It evoked a rich and complex aroma from the humble combination of yellow soybean paste, oyster sauce, and soy sauce. It is difficult to fathom the remarkable alchemical transformation that occurred within the pot, elevating both the meat and the seasonings to a sublime state. Those who frequently cook understand that no amount of embellishment can surpass the significance of timing. Familiarity with the properties of ingredients and their appropriate treatment can render even a simple dish, seasoned only with salt, irresistibly delectable. This encapsulates the essence of simplicity in culinary art. The rich aroma of the meat compelled a man, who had just stepped through the gates of the upscale green scene garden community, to involuntarily retreat several paces until he stood before Xiaolan's stall. The man, named Deng Yang, had just returned from escorting his daughter to elementary school. With his wife working daily, he spent his time at home, dabbling in stocks and shuttling his daughter to and from school. Those residing in a high-end community typically enjoy a comfortable income. During lunchtime, a cleaning lady would come to his home to tidy up and prepare meals, sparing him from household chores. Breakfast was often a hurried affair, consisting of hastily prepared items, a glass of milk, 2 slices of toast, a few fried eggs, and some sausages. This had sufficed in the past, and he never felt particularly hungry. However, upon catching a whiff of the rich chicken aroma, Deng Yang distinctly heard a long, resonant growl emanating from his stomach, as if his appetite had temporarily commandeered his cognitive faculties, compelling him to approach a street vendor. It was well known that he had never before glanced at roadside stalls. Many renowned chain establishments may appear appealing on the outside, but often compromise on hygiene, let alone these street vendors, which seemed rife with dust and bacteria, sharing the same water for washing dishes and cleaning cloths. Even if the roadside stall at the community entrance boasted an appealing decor, it remained a roadside stall, and he was reluctant to purchase anything deemed unhealthy or unsanitary. Yet, entranced by the alluring scent of chicken, Deng Yang found himself mesmerized, his legs unwilling to budge. The enchanting aroma seemed to trigger a primal instinct within him, transforming him from a man into a stubborn mule, impervious to reason's urging. He stood transfixed, watching Xiaolan as she added a spoonful of yellow wine, swirling it in a circle as she poured it into the pan. The alcohol evaporated instantly, intensifying the meat's fragrance and enveloping him in an aromatic haze. Gazing at the vibrant, golden chicken in the pot, a poetic line unexpectedly surfaced in his mind. The fragrant array ascends to the skies, the city adorned in golden armor. His eyes and thoughts were completely captivated by the luminous chicken. With a decisive click, Xiaolan turned off the gas stove. Deng Yang furrowed his brow and quickly regained his composure. He swallowed hard and asked eagerly, "Boss, how much for your stir-fried chicken?" Xiaolan looked at him with a puzzled expression, slightly frowning. "This is not stir-fried chicken, it's braised chicken." Deng Yang was taken aback. "But weren't you just stir-frying?" "Indeed," Xiaolan replied, "but I haven't even begun to braise it yet. If cooking had a progress bar, this braised chicken would only be at 30. It's not even a semi-finished product, it's merely been lightly oiled. I never anticipated a customer would rush in to inquire about the price at this stage." Deng Yang blinked, feeling as if each of his eyelashes was distinctly enveloped in the enticing aroma. The chicken had reached such a level of preparation, it seemed ready to serve. Yet the vendor continued to work. Just as he contemplated suggesting that Xiaolan sell it to him immediately, he found his lips moving slower than Xiaolan's hands. Suddenly, Xiaolan ladled a generous scoop of water into the pot without hesitation. In an instant, a pot of visually and aromatically appealing stir-fried chicken was sullied by the splash of cold water. It was evident that the flavors had been diluted. The once vibrant colors of the chicken now appeared dull and uninviting. Xiaolan was undeterred by Deng Yang's look of dismay. He remained deeply focused on his culinary task, rarely allowing himself to be distracted. Utilizing the residual heat from the pot, he stirred the chicken and water together. Then, he lifted the pot and poured the entire contents, along with the broth, into a large clay pot, sealing it with a lid. As the chicken in the clay pot began to bubble once more, Xiaolan lifted the lid, and the pot erupted with frothy bubbles, sending splashes of liquid into the air, reminiscent of boiling honey, glistening with a radiant hue akin to amber or agate. The mesmerizing colors that had previously graced the pot returned anew. Deng Yang stood entranced. His feet that had been poised to depart now stealthily retreated. This culinary process was akin to the casting of a spell. Merely by heating and boiling, the once mundane dish was rejuvenated. Xiaolan added a pinch of salt and some rehydrated dried shiitake mushrooms, covering it again to simmer on low heat. After 10 minutes, upon lifting the lid once more, an even more exquisite aroma surged forth. It was so overwhelming that Deng Yang momentarily questioned whether it was he who had lifted the lid, rather than the vendor. The new fragrance obliterated Deng Yang's previous memories, leaving only the essence of the dish. However, the magic of cooking persisted. The aroma was still not complete. Xiaolan added fried potatoes to the pot and covered it once again. Remarkably, these seemingly insignificant potatoes asserted a powerful presence within the braised chicken. Deng Yang suddenly detected a soft, glutinous aroma that surged forth, his mouth reacting more swiftly than his nose to the scent of the potatoes. Just by inhaling, he felt as if he could taste the potatoes' grainy, powdery, and tender texture. He could hardly discern whether it was his sense of taste or smell that was activated. His throat quivered in anticipation, and observing the vendor's calm demeanor, he could not help but urge, "Boss, when will it be ready?" As Xiaolan glanced at the clock, it was nearing 11 o'clock. The large pot of meat, along with 4 or 5 chickens, posed quite the challenge to cook. It would require at least another 20 minutes. As the dish was meant to be prepared in bulk and needed a longer cooking time, "Perhaps you could take a seat and wait?" he suggested. Deng Yang hesitated. He had initially intended to treat this meal as a makeshift breakfast to compensate for the unsatisfactory morning repast. However, waiting for such an extended period felt disheartening, especially since lunch was already upon them. They had pre-ordered their dishes, simply awaiting delivery, with the housekeeper scheduled to arrive to prepare the meal. Naturally, a home-cooked lunch promised greater nutritional value and health benefits, as all ingredients were sourced from a reputable supermarket, ensuring safety. As for the roadside stalls, having arrived, he decided to purchase a small sample to satisfy his curiosity. Deng Yang found a nearby table, feeling reassured only when he could observe the vendor preparing his food. After a few minutes, he witnessed the vendor lifting the lid of the pot once more, adding green and red bell peppers. Deng Yang's fingers instinctively spread wide, and he nearly shouted, "I don't eat bell peppers." Yet, it was too late. He suddenly realized that the vendor was not privy to his family's culinary preferences. This was communal cooking, intended to serve all customers, indifferent to his aversion to bell peppers. He truly despised them. The mere scent made him feel nauseated. His face paled as he grappled with the dilemma of leaving but feeling reluctant to abandon the meal, or staying but struggling to swallow it. After a moment of inner conflict, his disdain for bell peppers triumphed. He feigned a phone call and quietly rose from his seat. However, just a few steps away, he was ensnared by a powerful aroma that compelled him back into his chair. The bell peppers had cooked down, and the yellow braised chicken was ready to be served. The dish had transformed from its initial humble sauté into a robust, enticing creation. The aroma morphed from that of a charming temptress into a muscular figure. No longer coy but rather assertive. It had shed its disguise and boldly revealed its true nature. Once it merely lured diners with its allure. But now it wielded its strength, drawing patrons in with a commanding presence. Deng Yang felt trapped, unable to escape the enticing yet overwhelming atmosphere. Ultimately, he succumbed to the inevitable, resignedly asking, "How much for a portion of yellow braised chicken rice?" 40, came the reply. This price offered him a measure of comfort. Anything too cheap was a risk he was unwilling to take. "All right, I'll take one." Xiaolan opened the rice cooker, scooping a generous serving of rice before returning to the large pot to ladle a heaping portion of chicken onto the plate. Just as Deng Yang realized he had forgotten to request takeout, Xiaolan had already presented him with the dish. He sighed, attributing his oversight to being momentarily captivated by the yellow braised chicken. At first, when the chicken was submerged in broth as it was added to the pot, it appeared as though the meal would be bland and diluted. Yet now, upon lifting the lid, he was astonished to find that the chicken and potatoes had absorbed all the flavorful juices. The pot revealed hardly a trace of clear water. Instead, each piece of chicken appeared as if enshrined in a layer of honeyed wax, exquisite as a work of art. It is sold by the roadside, where a generous spoonful of meat fetches only 40 yuan. Were it to grace a Michelin-starred restaurant, the plate would hold merely 2 or 3 morsels, garnished with a flower, commanding a price of 400. In Deng Yang's mind, the presentation of this braised chicken already warranted full marks. Yet, he remained curious about its taste. After settling the bill, he returned to his seat, gazing at the green and red peppers on his plate. Surprisingly, he felt no aversion. Rather, his appetite was ignited. The aroma of the braised chicken seemed to encapsulate the essence of all its ingredients, discarding the unpleasant aspects. Deng Yang could still detect the scent of the green pepper, albeit one that was not familiar to him. If the unadulterated pepper resembled a menacing stray dog, exuding a frightful aura, then the current version was akin to a once-abandoned dog now embraced by a loving owner. Its prickly demeanor softened into a velvety warmth, radiating an air of bliss. Even the most fearful of dogphobics would be compelled to reach out and pet this exuberant puppy, tail wagging in delight. Thus, while the green pepper remained a green pepper, it was transformed into something altogether different. Deng Yang couldn't bear to extract it from the plate, finding it charmingly vibrant. Without further hesitation, he lifted a piece of chicken and placed it in his mouth. The cunning nose seemed to hold a grudge against the mouth for previously usurping its role. This time, it took charge. Before the taste of the succulent chicken reached his tongue, the nose had already captured its delectable essence, relaying it to the brain. The brain, having been thoroughly astonished, then allowed the mouth to appreciate the flavor. In that moment, an overwhelming sense of regret surged within Deng Yang. He should not have indulged in breakfast before this meal. The lingering flavors of his earlier repast still clung to his palate. The bitterness of coffee mingling with the fishiness of milk. These remnants obstructed his taste buds, preventing a full appreciation of the braised chicken's flavor, leading the nose to preemptively claim victory in presenting the culinary delight to the brain. Such exquisite food warranted a meticulous cleansing of the palate, ensuring all traces of toothpaste were washed away, allowing for the most profound experience of taste. However, the coffee and milk did not linger long. Once their defenses were breached, the mouth became a dominion of braised chicken. An array of flavors surged forth, both abundant and harmoniously structured, advancing toward him. The tenderness of the chicken, the creaminess of the potato, the rich aroma of the mushroom, the mild spice of the green pepper, the robust sweetness of the red pepper, all bolstered by the formidable trio of scallion, ginger, and garlic, vanquished any remaining food remnants, sending them fleeing in disarray. Seated at a makeshift folding table by the roadside, Deng Yang felt as though the strains of a violin serenade flowed around him. This was no mere street stall. It was a culinary experience worthy of a 5-star establishment. He longed to close his eyes and immerse himself in the dreamlike sensations the food offered. Yet, his eyes resisted closure. After all, they too had a stake in this feast. This dish of braised chicken rice is not merely a feast for the nose and palate, but a visual banquet as well. The verdant hues resemble green jade, the reds evoke crimson agate, and the yellows add a further richness. The white rice, stained with the sauce, resembles translucent yellow crystal, while the chicken pieces display the luster of yellow sapphires. Even the slices of ginger interspersed within gleam like gold. Under such culinary temptation, Deng Yang cast aside his chopsticks. Abandoning his so-called decorum, he scooped the rice and chicken with a spoon, stuffing his cheeks until they bulged, intuitively grasping the essence of braised chicken rice. The slightly salty sauce, paired with steaming white rice, forms the epitome of satisfaction. To hell with coffee and toast. His stomach, accustomed to Chinese cuisine, clearly informed him that enjoying a bowl of warm, sauce-laden rice on a chilly winter day is indeed the pinnacle of delight. Chapter 112. Competing with customers for food. You've made it. To be fair, the cook hired by Deng Yang's family is already of commendable skill. Initially, they intended to hire her as a live-in nanny, which would allow her to prepare breakfast and dinner. However, to their surprise, this humble woman smiled and declined. I have several employers who require me to stay with them. I simply cannot manage it. Deng Yang soon realized that this lady was quite popular in the neighborhood. After preparing lunch at his home, she would head upstairs to cater to another employer, and later in the evening, she would prepare dinner in another building within the same complex. Running back and forth each day, her monthly earnings might even exceed those of Deng Yang and his wife combined. However, in comparison to the vendor who created this exquisite braised chicken rice, her culinary prowess pales significantly, akin to the difference between an elementary school student and a postdoctoral researcher. 6th grade is the limit. As for Deng Yang and his wife's cooking skills, they are more akin to preschoolers. Their cooking is primarily edible and not fatal. With little more to expect, it is easy to imagine the profound impact this dish of braised chicken rice had on Deng Yang, shaking him to his core, shattering his culinary convictions. He couldn't help but reflect, if roadside stalls could be this delicious, had his years of commitment to a healthy lifestyle been in vain? In the end, had he, this so-called member of the middle class, never experienced a single day of culinary bliss? And had his wife and child suffered alongside him all this time? With tears welling in his eyes, Deng Yang scraped the last morsel of rice from his plate, ensuring not a single grain remained. When he noticed some residual sauce left behind, he could not bring himself to simply lick it clean. Instead, he painstakingly scraped the plate with his spoon, scraping and savoring. How he wished for a steamed bun to accompany him, for he would have wiped the sauce clean. It was not that he could not afford another serving of braised chicken rice, but rather that he instinctively felt that wasting such a delectable treasure would invite divine retribution. Still yearning for more, Deng Yang decided to take a portion of braised chicken home. However, as he rose to leave, he caught a whiff of a fragrance entirely distinct from that of the braised chicken rice. This aroma was somewhat salty, accompanied by a faint hint of toasted rice. Emanating from a small clay pot nearby, the scent instantly tantalized his taste buds. "Boss, what is this?" "Never mind what it is, just sell me a taste." As soon as the words left his lips, a head suddenly popped out from the snack cart, protesting loudly. "This portion is mine. If you want to eat, wait for me to cook it." Xiaolan was momentarily speechless. How could this new arrival be even more foolish than Li Asi? He swiftly pushed the protruding head back down. "Hulai, competing with customers for food? How ambitious of you." This fellow had engaged in fervent debates in their group chat, and had finally convinced everyone to take turns with the tasks. The order was to follow Li Asi, Hulai, and then Lu Dongbin. Little did they know that Hulai was truly reckless. Within mere minutes of his arrival, he was already snatching food from the customers. Xiaolan quickly apologized to the customer. "I'm terribly sorry. Our new recruit is a bit protective of his food. Please disregard him. This is clay pot rice, and it will only take 10 minutes to prepare. You take priority. This portion is for you, and he can wait." Hearing that a new dish could be made in just 10 minutes, Deng Yang waved his hand generously. "It's no problem. Let him eat first. I just finished a meal and am not hungry. Besides, the fact that your staff eats what they prepare indicates a high standard of hygiene, which reassures me." Observing the customer's amiable disposition, Hulai instantly transformed into a ravenous ghost, gazing at Xiaolan with longing eyes and pitifully tugging at his pant leg. "Brother Lon, look. The customer says he is not in a hurry. If he is not in a hurry, I am. I'm the king of urgency. I deliberately skipped breakfast just to wait for this meal. If I wait another second, I might starve." Xiaolan had prepared Huangmin chicken for everyone yesterday, and today Hulai was eagerly anticipating unlocking a new culinary delight. Xiaolan found himself at a loss, primarily because he lacked an extra hand to hold up his waistband. Fine, go ahead and eat. Quickly prepare the ingredients, and once they're sorted, you can eat." "All right." Hulai sprang into action as if he had sprouted 8 arms, extracting all the ingredients for the clay pot rice from the foam box and packaging them individually. Deng Yang was willing to wait a bit longer, not only because he had just eaten, but also due to a small selfish motive. He wanted to observe the vendor as he meticulously created a fresh portion of clay pot rice. This was not only to ensure the safety of the ingredients, but also to glean some cooking secrets to share with the kitchen staff at home. Judging by the tantalizing aroma he had just inhaled, this clay pot rice was bound to be delectable. However, when Hulai lifted the lid of the clay pot rice and began to eat before him, Deng Yang's composed expression faltered. "What an enticing aroma. This is actually black bean pork rib rice." It turned out that the delightful scent he had caught earlier was merely a fraction of the true fragrance of the dish. The moment the lid was removed, an extraordinarily distinctive aroma enveloped him, overwhelming both his mind and stomach. He not only forgot the taste of the earlier Huangmin chicken, but also felt his stomach grow emptier. It was as if all memories of having eaten the Huangmin chicken were mere figments of imagination. In truth, he had consumed nothing, which explained his ravenous state. Meanwhile, Hulai was entirely oblivious to Deng Yang's hungry, covetous gaze, engrossed in devouring his meal. You might find it hard to believe, but Hulai was equally tempted. The more he ate, the more he craved. It is rather peculiar, although the clay pot rice has already found its way into his mouth. The insatiable craving within his stomach continues to stir restlessly. It seems as though this hunger pang is vociferously urging him from the depths of his esophagus to forego the laborious chewing and simply pour the entire bowl into his mouth, sparing it the arduous weight in his belly. However, Hulai's solitary mouth, with its own temper, harbors distinct preferences. It understands that the essence of clay pot rice lies in the crispy, caramelized layer of rice on the surface. This aromatic crust is what renders the dish so uniquely delightful. Hence, his mouth persistently seeks out the crispy bits to savor. The crust, both brittle and chewy, produces a satisfying crunch with every bite, yet it remains unyielding. The stickiness of the rice makes this delectable pursuit exceedingly tantalizing, requiring considerable time and patience to conquer. As he chews, the starch within the rice breaks down into maltose, allowing his tongue to revel in a delightful sweetness, fueling his determination. His mouth engages in this culinary conquest, wholly ignoring the tumultuous waves of gastric acid churning within. Meanwhile, Deng Yang, as an observer, watches the glistening golden crust disappear morsel by morsel into the employee's mouth. Each crisp sound resonates unsettlingly against his sensitive nerves. By the time he registers this, he finds his own mouth uncontrollably mimicking the action, his teeth grinding together audibly. Regret washes over him. He should not have allowed this to happen. Had he waited even a second longer, he might have perished from hunger, and now he must endure an additional 10 minutes. As time swiftly passes, noon arrives. The streets become increasingly crowded, with a growing number of people passing by Xiaolan's stall, all seemingly heading towards the shopping mall. The mall, a veritable treasure trove, offers an array of establishments, including fast casual dining options suited for workers. With purpose driving them, pedestrians hasten past the stall, not pausing even for a moment. Only a handful notice the newly established stall at the roadside. Its offerings remain indistinct, obscured by the several dark clay pots before the proprietor, whose lids are firmly fastened, releasing no aromas. After a cursory glance, most individuals quickly divert their gaze, moving on without a backward glance. Some, however, find it curious that one customer is waiting expectantly at the stall while the vendor remains leisurely engrossed in his mobile device. Another attendant appears indifferent to the hungry customer, instead choosing to eat his own meal, turning his back as if embarrassed to dine in the presence of a patron, a gesture that is somewhat polite, yet lacking in sincerity. Perhaps this scene is too incongruous, prompting many to linger a moment longer. As they observe, a peculiar fragrance wafts towards them. It is the scent of rice, the tantalizing aroma of caramelized rice. Alongside it is a fascinatingly complex bouquet, imbued with a hint of saltiness, familiar yet strangely foreign. It is akin to encountering a colleague adorned in full makeup during a weekend outing. Their features seem vaguely recognizable, yet the distinctly different aura renders one hesitant to call out their name. Perhaps the scent is too faint and distant for passers-by to discern its source with certainty. At that moment, Xiaolan lifted the lid of the small clay pot and added fragrant scallions and greens. "Mr. Deng, just a few more minutes and it will be ready," she said. Deng Yang dared not open his mouth, fearing that the saliva within might overflow. Why was it that others could not perceive the overwhelming aroma? Because all the fragrance had been consumed by Deng Yang, standing before the stall. The pot's lid had but a tiny hole, no larger than a pinky finger, the sole escape route for the aroma. The instant the scent wafted forth, Deng Yang inhaled deeply, drawing it into his lungs before exhaling. This clay pot rice belonged to him. Even the aromatic molecules that drifted away were his alone. Just like the clay pot rice his companion was enjoying, his dish also featured spare ribs and black bean sauce. According to the vendor, there were various flavors available, including mushroom chicken, salted fish with eggplant, Cantonese sausage, and beef clay pot rice. Yet, Deng Yang opted for the identical dish that his companion was savoring, perhaps to compensate for his regrets, or perhaps because he was captivated by the deliciousness of his companion's meal. The companion faced away, obscuring his expression. But Deng Yang could observe the rapid disappearance of the rice in the bowl. The companion's mouth resembled the eye of a typhoon, appearing relatively calm, as chewing the crispy rice was arduous work, resulting in a rhythmic inflation and deflation of his cheeks. However, the surrounding tempest was far from tranquil, as a pair of chopsticks swept through the clay pot like a whirlwind. The spare ribs, greens, mushrooms, rice, and scallions spiraled together, caught in a vortex, whisked away to an unknown destination. Deng Yang longed to open his mouth and catch some, yet he was baffled by how his companion managed to consume every grain without leaving a trace. When the companion finally set down the pot, it was utterly clean. Not a trace of crispy rice remaining, only the glistening bottom of the pot visible. Thus, Deng Yang awaited his own serving of black bean spare rib clay pot rice with eager anticipation. He had witnessed the entire process of its creation, ensuring a sense of security in his meal. The first step involved the vendor taking a clean clay pot and brushing a thin layer of oil inside. Next, the vendor placed the washed rice into the pot, added water, and brought it to a vigorous boil. The flames were fierce, and Deng Yang could feel the heat upon his face while standing at the stall. Yet, no fire could match the intensity of his burning gaze. He wished he could emit laser beams from his eyes to hasten the cooking of the rice. As the rice began to bubble, the vendor added the marinated spare ribs and pre-soaked mushrooms, gently drizzling a spoonful of oil around the edge of the pot. Remarkably, even before the spare ribs were cooked, they began to emit a mouth-watering aroma. This very fragrance, however, filled Ding Yang with a sense of loss. He realized that he could not steal the chef's secrets. Knowing the steps to their cooking did little good without the knowledge of their special marinade. The secret marinade was the chef's signature skill. Even if the chef generously shared its name, without knowledge of the specific proportions, replicating it accurately would remain a formidable challenge. It is akin to conducting a chemistry experiment. A slight excess or deficiency could very well be the fulcrum upon which success or failure pivots. The ribs were marinated by Xiaolon prior to her departure, carefully placed in a portable freezer for the journey, and by noon, the marination had reached its zenith. The freezer was exceedingly compact, sufficient only for meat and vegetables, while the remaining items were housed in a foam box. In this climate, the entire world resembled a vast refrigerator, had the weather been warmer. Ice packs would have been necessary within the foam box. As the clay pot rice was nearing completion, Ding Yang suddenly inquired with curiosity, "By the way, boss, what exactly is fermented black bean sauce?" Xiaolon replied, "It is simply fermented black beans. When combined with the juices of the ribs, it transforms into this sauce." To his astonishment, Ding Yang's expression shifted dramatically. "What? Fermented black beans? Isn't that?" Xiaolon nodded. "Indeed, it is fermented from black soybeans." Ding Yang became awkwardly silent. As his unfinished thought lingered, "Isn't that dark cuisine?" Fermented black beans are a unique product of fermentation, reputed for their rich nutritional value. Yet they possess a pungent aroma and are exceedingly salty. In layman's terms, they are considered quite unpalatable. Ding Yang had long regarded this intensely aromatic food as a veritable menace. He had previously attempted to embrace fermented black beans, yet regardless of the method of preparation, they either emitted an odd scent or were excessively salty. In essence, the addition of fermented black beans invariably ruined the dish. Furthermore, their dark, unappetizing appearance rendered them, in Ding Yang's estimation, no different from rat droppings. "Boss, could we possibly omit the fermented black beans?" Ding Yang could not restrain himself from asking. Yet Xiaolon, visibly troubled, replied, "That is not feasible. The fermented black beans were marinated with the ribs. They have been chopped and mixed in, making them impossible to remove. Perhaps I could prepare another portion for you, and I shall consume this one." Under normal circumstances, Ding Yang would have readily acquiesced. However, after the prolonged 10-minute wait, he found himself unable to endure even a moment longer. "No, I shall try this one." It was hard to fathom that today, he was not only breaking his long-standing aversion to bell peppers, but was now poised to shatter his prohibition against fermented black beans as well. Indeed, rules are meant to be broken. Regardless, the aroma wafting from the pot of fermented black bean rib clay pot rice was distinctly different from any fermented black bean products he had encountered before. He hoped it would not disappoint him. As the fragrant essence intensified, signaling the imminent conclusion of cooking, a youthful voice chimed in. "It smells so good. Grandma, I want to eat that." In the next moment, an elderly voice responded, "No, we shall not eat that. Roadside stalls are often filthy, and only the uncouth would dine at such places. I want to eat. I want to be a wild person." The child's unexpected proclamation was met with foresight by the elder, who had preemptively prepared a counter. "If you eat that, you will grow long worms in your belly. Be good. We shall not eat that. We will return home, and Grandma will prepare something delicious for you." Ding Yang, the so-called wild man, felt an inexplicable pang upon overhearing the exchange between the grandmother and grandchild. He was the sole patron of all the roadside stalls nearby, and their words seemed to be a pointed rebuke directed at him. Yet, he felt unable to retort, for until today, even an hour prior, he had harbored the same thoughts. Moreover, he conveyed the same sentiments to his beloved daughter. Who could have anticipated the capriciousness of life? Xiaolon discreetly lifted her gaze and discovered that the speakers were an elderly woman and her young grandson. The boy, clad in the uniform of a nearby primary school, was accompanied by his grandmother, who was carrying groceries evidently purchased on her way to pick him up from school. The grandson, however, was entirely dismissive of his grandmother's admonitions. "No, I refuse to eat your food. I desire that delicious meal." The grandmother persisted with her intimidating tactics. "Silly child. The enticing aroma arises because they use filthy oil from the gutter. We shall not consume it. It is unclean." Yet, the child remained unconvinced, pointing at Ding Yang and exclaiming, "Grandma is lying. Look at that uncle. He is eating it, so it cannot be as dirty as you claim." The grandmother lowered her voice. "It is because he is unkempt and unhygienic that he partakes in street food. Children must not emulate such bad uncles." Ding Yang kept his head bowed, striving to diminish his presence while suppressing the urge to turn and look. Despite his efforts to remain inconspicuous, the flames of conflict had unexpectedly encroached upon him. Anger surged within Ding Yang, and thoughts of retaliation suddenly ignited in his mind. So, they are mocking him from behind. Initially, he had intended to take his meal home, but now he had a change of heart. The clay pot rice with spare ribs was priced at 60 yuan per serving. After completing his payment, Deng Yang confidently approached the nearest table occupied by the grandmother and her grandson, and decisively lifted the lid of his clay pot. In that instant, an intense aroma burst forth once more. It was as if, in perfect synchrony, the artificial fountain within the community sprang to life, sending forth a column of water. The water spiraled upward, swaying gracefully in the air, before cascading back to the ground like a celestial maiden scattering flowers, reminiscent of a concubine intoxicated. This fountain seemed to embody the essence of the fragrant clay pot rice. Each time it was activated, it drew a throng of onlookers. At that moment, countless passers-by halted in their tracks. Their curiosity piqued as they scrutinized the upgraded snack cart and the several folding tables set up nearby. How delightful! When did a clay pot rice establishment open here? It must be new. I didn't see it yesterday. Amidst their discussions, they noticed Deng Yang seated at the table, with the aromatic clay pot rice with spare ribs before him. Spare ribs. So, the scent originates from the spare ribs. That is why it felt so familiar. I had sensed it all along, yet I hesitated to mention the distinct fermented black bean aroma. Oddly, the clay pot rice from the usual delivery doesn't smell like this. Why is this place exceptionally fragrant? Many began to whisper among themselves, as if they were being called out by a made-up colleague in public, struggling to reconcile the discrepancy between their assumptions and the reality before them. At this moment, Deng Yang paid no heed to the gazes of the crowd. He inhaled deeply, reveling in the aroma of the spare ribs with exaggerated delight. You little rascals. Just wait until you see how I tantalize your senses. Though there was an element of theatrics, the emotions were genuine amidst the performance. The aroma of this rib dish is simply enchanting, penetrating deeply into Deng Yang's heart. Upon closer inspection, it becomes evident that the ribs used here are the more expensive middle ribs or the premium rib chops. This particular cut boasts a perfect balance of fat and lean meat, featuring a single, well-shaped rib bone that presents beautifully. During festive seasons, acquiring high-quality premium rib chops often requires a bit of luck, as they tend to sell out quickly. If one were to utilize a grocery app, timing would be crucial. Otherwise, they would vanish in an instant. This is not merely due to their aesthetic appeal, but more importantly, their exquisite taste. The front ribs are tender but contain more bone, while the rear ribs are leaner yet tougher. The premium rib chop, situated in the center, represents the essence of the entire pig. Its exorbitant price reflects its exceptional quality. The impeccable ratio of fat to lean meat offers a texture that is both tender and resilient. Most remarkably, the substantial, well-formed bone ensures that the marrow seeps into the meat while remaining perfectly centered, never straying to the sides, thereby preventing any frustration when gnawing on the bones. Thus, upon encountering such splendid ribs, Deng Yang hardly minds the unwelcome presence of fermented black beans in his clay pot rice. He eagerly picks up a piece of the premium rib chop and savors it with delight. As soon as it touches his palate, a low hum escapes his chest, as if his internal organs are sighing in relief, finally experiencing the world after many years of loyalty to their master. This mouth of his, which prides itself on never being disappointed, has always indulged in imported ingredients that cost double the price. Yet, why does nothing compare to the taste of these ribs? They bear no trace of a bloody flavor, only a rich and enticing aroma. What could be the reason? Deng Yang quickly widened his eyes, searching for any spices that might have eliminated the gamey scent from the ribs. He recognized the taste of ginger, but it was certainly not solely that. Relying solely on scallions, ginger, and garlic could not have eradicated the gamey flavor to such an extent. However, as he examined closely, he could not find any obvious spices, only the crushed black beans scattered across the pieces of ribs. If one were not to pay attention, they might mistake it for black pepper. Yet, the aroma it exudes is far more complex than that of black pepper. Could the secret to the ribs' lack of gaminess lie in the black beans? Deng Yang, with a mix of skepticism and curiosity, scraped the fragments of black beans from the ribs with a spoon, gathering a small pile to taste. Suddenly, his eyes widened in astonishment. It truly was the black beans. Chapter 113, Clay Pot Rice with Black Bean Ribs. It turns out that the saltiness is merely a disguise of the black beans. Once perfectly balanced, their other aromatic qualities can be revealed. It is not an unpleasant odor, but rather an overly rich and complex fragrance that exceeds the threshold of what is acceptable, resulting in a perception of unpleasantness. If black pepper can be likened to a firecracker that merely makes a sound, then black beans are akin to a concentrated firework, bursting forth with endless surprises. Just as fireworks must be enjoyed one by one, so too must black beans be savored layer by layer. In the past, Deng Yang had encountered fermented black beans in his dishes, either sprinkled on top as mere embellishments or added in copious amounts during cooking, merely utilizing their surface flavor to enhance the dish without fully harnessing the essence within. However, Xiaolon, by employing a method of finely chopping and marinating, allowed the flavor of the fermented black beans to thoroughly permeate every cell of the ribs. This transformation resembled a coup, as the black beans expelled the fishy substances lurking within the cells, replacing them with their own aromatic essence. Thus, the ribs remained ribs, yet on a cellular level. They underwent a profound metamorphosis, akin to a thorough cleansing of sinews and marrow. This prompted Deng Yang to savor a bite, exclaiming in wonder with each morsel. His previous exaggerated demeanor had been a ploy to tantalize the elderly and the young, yet this time, his exaggeration stemmed from an uncontrollable inner astonishment. As for the elderly and the young, they were long forgotten in the backdrop of his fervor. Nevertheless, his reactions did not go unnoticed by those around him. Some, possessing a strong sense of empathy, found themselves salivating merely from watching Deng Yang's culinary escapades. Consequently, a suggestion arose. Shall we forego the shopping center? We're tired of those eateries. Let us give this one a try? Sounds good. I wonder if they offer takeout. I'd prefer not to dine by the roadside. Two individuals approached Xiao Lan to inquire about prices. The Huang braised chicken is 40 per serving. As for the clay pot rice, prices vary. The mushroom chicken, salted fish with eggplant, and Cantonese sausage are also 40 each. The black bean ribs rice and beef clay pot rice are 60. For those who prefer something fresher, the eel clay pot rice and frog clay pot rice are 80. If you desire a combination, the price is a compromise. For instance, chicken and ribs together would be 50. The two, upon hearing this, had no objections. This area, the Fengling South District, was known for its relatively high prices. Even the neighboring coffee stall charged 25 for a cup, making a hearty portion of rice priced at 40 or 50 quite reasonable. After confirming with Xiao Lan that takeout was available, they each selected a clay pot rice dish priced at 40. The little boy, who had been clamoring for clay pot rice, intensified his protests upon noticing the arrival of two additional customers. Wah, I want to eat. I absolutely must have it. I want to be a wild child and learn mischief from the naughty uncle. Even though he was merely in the second grade, his tantrums were quite formidable. With a determined effort, he broke free from his grandmother's grasp and dashed towards Xiao Lan's stall. The grandmother, at a loss, had no choice but to follow and keep an eye on him. This elderly woman was clearly no novice in the kitchen, having cooked for nearly 6 decades. She possessed expertise that was nothing short of remarkable. With a discerning eye, she could assess the quality of ingredients and the proficiency of techniques employed by others. It was precisely because of her profound understanding that she preferred her beloved grandson to avoid the school cafeteria's fare, opting instead to bring him home each day at noon to prepare meals herself. Yet, children are inherently curious and crave novelty. Regardless of how creatively she cooked or how delicious her dishes were, her grandson grew weary of them, always yearning to sample the culinary skills of others. In this stubbornness, the grandmother found herself outmatched by her equally obstinate grandson. She adjusted her reading glasses, scrutinizing Xiao Lan's stall with a discerning gaze, as if she wished she could employ a microscope for a more meticulous inspection. Upon noticing the brand-new snack cart and pristine cooking utensils, the elderly lady's expression softened slightly. While the culinary skills remained to be evaluated, at least the sanitary conditions were barely acceptable. However, hygiene was merely superficial. True food safety hinged upon the quality of the ingredients. At that moment, Xiao Lan was preparing clay pot rice for two patrons who had just placed their orders. As it was the first day of business and uncertain if customers would arrive, she opted to prepare the dishes fresh rather than in advance. The braised chicken could simmer gently for a while, but clay pot rice, if cooked too long, would result in an overly hard crust that was difficult to chew. Beside her, Hu Lai was not merely an observer. He imitated Xiao Lan's actions, using a brush to coat the inside of the clay pot with oil before adding the rinsed rice. All ingredients had been prepped, requiring only a timely sequence for cooking. As Hu Lai meticulously followed each step, errors were unlikely. Once he became adept at the process, he would be capable of managing independently, allowing Xiao Lan to take a breather, or rather, assess the situation. Xiao Lan kept a watchful eye, and when she noticed Hu Lai deviating from the correct procedure, she promptly pointed out the mistake. The ratio of rice to water is 1:15. You've added too much water. As she spoke, she scooped out several spoonfuls of water, emphasizing, the water-to-rice ratio is crucial. It affects the doneness of the rice. Too much water will render it mushy and prevent a crispy crust, while too little will leave it undercooked and unpalatable. Even the fastidious elderly lady could not help but nod in silent approval, secretly awarding Xiao Lan a point. This vendor possessed a certain acumen, able to discern the water-to-rice ratio at a mere glance without needing to probe. Grandma, I want rice just like that uncle's, her little grandson exclaimed, pointing at Deng Yang, who was savoring his meal not far away. The old lady furrowed her brow, instinctively wanting to refuse. Given the humble conditions of a roadside stall, how could they possibly serve quality ribs? Most likely, they were using frozen meat. It would be wiser to order something more common, like pork or chicken, which might still offer a chance of freshness. Just as she was about to voice her thoughts, the elderly lady suddenly pointed at the clay pot in Xiao Lan's hands as if she had discovered a new continent. You, is that a purple clay pot? Indeed, Xiao Lan replied, somewhat puzzled by the question. Of course it was. The distinct color of the purple clay pot was unmistakable, its hue a deep shade that contrasted sharply with ceramic pots. However, what the elderly lady truly wished to convey was her astonishment that this was, in fact, an authentic purple clay pot. As someone with extensive culinary experience, she possessed a discerning eye for cookware. The more she observed, the more she felt that this vendor's purple clay pot was particularly appealing. Just look at that matte finish, the intricate texture. How could it appear superior to her own pot, which had cost over 1,000? It seemed implausible. How could a roadside stall afford such a high-quality pot? Did they not fear it might slip and break? The elderly lady was well informed. Not long ago, she had asked her son to buy her a new purple clay pot, only to be met with complaints about the increasing scarcity of purple clay mines and the skyrocketing prices of high-quality, pure purple clay pots in recent years. Her son inquired if they could purchase a more affordable ceramic casserole, or perhaps even an electric clay pot. However, the grandmother remained resolute, aware that nothing could surpass the excellence of a Zisha pot, for its price was justified by its quality. Earthenware pots are prone to cracking and can easily scorch food, while electric pots, although featuring a Zisha lid, are predominantly made of stainless steel, lacking true essence. Zisha clay is a robust material, and pots crafted from it are not only resistant to temperature extremes, but also less susceptible to breakage and sticking. A pure Zisha pot of good quality can indeed command a price of 4,000 to 5,000 yuan. After all, the broth simmered in a Zisha pot is exquisite, and the braised meat is irresistibly fragrant. Yet, her son and daughter-in-law, neither of whom cook, fail to appreciate that quality kitchenware holds the same allure for a chef as a fine sword does for a general. Ultimately, after considerable deliberation, her son and daughter-in-law decided to buy her a pot priced over 1,000 yuan, which was already quite expensive. Had her son been less willing to spend, he could have easily procured one for just over 100. Thus, the grandmother said nothing and graciously accepted the gift. However, upon noticing that a vendor's Zisha pot was of superior quality, she could hardly believe her eyes. She felt an inexplicable urge to reach out and touch it, but fortunately, Xiaolon swiftly intervened. Careful, it's hot. The grandmother, coming to her senses, quickly explained, I merely wanted to admire the beauty of the pot. Xiaolon replied, perhaps you should wait until the fire is out to touch it. It's quite dangerous. The grandmother nodded in agreement, but after a moment's contemplation, she couldn't resist asking, Sir, this pot must be rather pricey, as it appears to be of such fine quality? The vendor responded, quality is assured. It is a product of our system. Undoubtedly exquisite, except for the 100 bulletproof Hawaiian nut. Xiaolon feigned busyness, mumbling incomprehensibly, anxious that the vendor might ask for a link. As more people congregated, drawn by the crowd's energy, they began bustling about, which prevented the grandmother from continuing her inquiries with Xiaolon. Many patrons, upon hearing that the clay pot rice was freshly made and that the Huang Menji could be served immediately, opted to take the latter to go. When the lid of the Huang Menji pot was lifted, the chicken, having been cooked for an extended time, not only retained its color but appeared even more richly inviting. Consequently, some customers, initially intent on the clay pot rice, were seduced by the aroma of the Huang Menji and changed their minds. One order of Huang Menji, to go, please. For those wishing to take their meals away, Xiaolon kindly reminded them, please consume promptly. The flavor is best enjoyed while hot. With the cold weather, it was likely that by the time they returned to their offices, their meals would have cooled. Nevertheless, most customers appeared indifferent, accustomed to the reality of having cold takeout. Some even smiled knowingly, interpreting Xiaolon's words as a disclaimer, ready to excuse any subpar taste on the grounds that the food had cooled, rather than attributing it to poor culinary skills. During the time spent packaging the Huang Menji, the 3 servings of clay pot rice prepared earlier were also ready. 2 portions were prepared for the first 2 passers-by who had been tempted, and another was set aside for the grandmother's grandson. Please pack the clay pot rice, he requested. Sure, replied Xiaolon, who then deftly pried along the edge of the rice pot with 2 spoons, lifting out the dish complete with rice and vegetables. The quality of the purple clay pot was superb, ensuring that the rice did not stick to the bottom at all. Furthermore, the crispy layer had already formed. Resembling a tender yellow bowl, even when lifted out, it maintained its perfect round shape without disintegrating in the air. Xiaolon placed the clay pot rice into a round aluminum foil container, secured the lid, and pinched the sealing edge into a petal shape before bagging it and handing it to the customer. The grandmother, her gaze filled with admiration for the purple clay pot, made no request for packing. She simply wished to savor the sight of the pot up close. Hulai intended to assist the grandmother in placing the clay pot rice onto a folding table, but to his surprise, the grandmother was quite nimble and took it upon herself to do so. Oh, you forgot your chopsticks. Hulai decided to hand over the utensils directly, sparing her another trip. Although she had only purchased 1 portion of clay pot rice, he generously provided 2 sets of utensils, along with a disposable bowl, just in case both grandmother and grandson wished to sample the dish. As he approached, he noticed the grandmother caressing the lid of the purple clay pot affectionately, lingering without opening it. Her grandson, impatient, urged her, Grandma, hurry, open the lid. I'm so hungry. My stomach is growling. Yet the grandmother merely exclaimed in wonder, so moist. So very moist. This clay pot is truly remarkable. Suddenly, she turned to Hulai and asked, where did you buy this clay pot? Hulai, with a sincere and somewhat foolish expression, replied, I don't know. I'm not the owner. I'm just a helper. The utensils and the cart were all procured by the owner himself. Realizing she could not extract any further information, the grandmother reluctantly opened the lid, placing it aside with care as if fearing it might be damaged. As the lid came off, her grandson eagerly raised his pre-prepared spoon, ready to scoop up the most tempting and delicious piece of rib. The grandmother let out a short gasp, quickly grasping her grandson's arm to halt him from indulging. Wait. Don't eat just yet. Let Grandma check if it's safe first. The clay pot might be of excellent quality, but that did not guarantee the ingredients were equally commendable. With only one grandson in the family, she took food safety seriously. Young children, with limited life experience, often lack the discernment to distinguish quality. As long as a dish is fragrant, children tend to devour it eagerly, unaware of potential issues arising from excessive flavoring. Thus, she, with her 60 years of culinary experience, would take it upon herself to assess the dish. With that, the grandmother picked up her chopsticks and delicately lifted the piece of rib from the spoon, placing it into her mouth. As the rib slid down, a mist suddenly clouded her reading glasses. This mist did not appear to be a result of the rib's steam, but rather seemed to stem from tears of joy welling in her eyes. It was simply divine, 100 times more delicious than her own cooking. Even for someone of her age with compromised chewing ability, the meat separated effortlessly from the bone. Yet, in that fleeting moment before the meat and bone parted ways, they clung to each other tightly, resisting the inevitable separation. This revelation led the elderly lady to realize that this was undoubtedly fresh meat, rather than aged frozen fare. No matter how well-preserved or tender frozen meat may be, it has long since exhausted its vitality in the prolonged wait. When consumed, it shows no inclination to resist. Every cell embodies a despondency that submits to the whims of fate, lacking any semblance of vigor. In summary, these ribs were undeniably of excellent quality. Yet, the tastiness of these ribs bordered on the extraordinary. Where could one find such exquisite ribs in the ordinary realm? Has technology perhaps advanced once more? The more she savored, the more grave her expression became. This bite did not alleviate her suspicions, rather, it intensified them. Unsure of whether it was indeed fine meat, she decided to indulge further. Another piece entered her mouth, fogging her glasses even more. Observing her increasingly rapid movements, her grandson was nearly compelled to reach into the pot to grab some. However, being in the second grade, he possessed a modicum of self-control, albeit limited. "Grandma, have you tasted it yet? Can I have some?" he inquired, his mouth watering. The grandmother replied ambiguously, with a hint of hesitation, "I suppose it's edible? It's hard to say. Let me try something else first." She picked up some of the side dishes from the pot, aiming to assess the quality of the main dish indirectly through the accompaniments. If the sides were subpar, then the quality of the main course would hardly be exceptional. One would not pair a phone worth 10,000 yuan with a pair of 2 yuan earphones, would they? At the very least, a 20 yuan pair would be expected, if not 200. And if someone's earphones were priced in the thousands, one could reasonably infer that the phone would be considerably more expensive, perhaps even several times so. The elderly lady wiped the condensation from the inner side of her glasses with her thumb before donning them once more to scrutinize carefully. Finally, she discovered traces of taro amidst the ribs. Indeed, Xiaolan's rib dish was not purely ribs. He had mixed in a touch of inexpensive vegetables, for otherwise, the price would not align. Much like adding potatoes to braised chicken to sell them at the price of chicken. Nevertheless, Xiaolan acted with integrity, ensuring that the accompaniments did not overshadow the main attraction, nor did they detract from its performance. The presence of taro was akin to the leaves in a bouquet, not only enhancing the beauty of the flowers, but also serving a stylistic purpose. The elderly lady picked up a piece of taro and took a deliberate bite, intent on discerning the patterns within. The strands of purple-red lines, reminiscent of areca nut, were evident, with noticeable starch granules and a tightly knit texture. She squinted for a closer inspection, but before her presbyopic vision could fully engage, her still-sharp tongue had already provided the answer. This was Lipu taro. Characterized by its areca-like markings, it is also known as areca taro. Its defining traits are its delicate softness and sweetness, earning it the title of the finest taro. Historically revered as a tribute to the imperial court, while the local price for areca taro may not be exorbitant, the cost of fresh ingredients can be steep due to shipping fees. Cultivating this variety of taro demands strict soil and climatic conditions, making it difficult to grow elsewhere. If one wishes to enjoy such taro, it could cost over 10 yuan per pound, comparable to the price of ordinary pork. With side dishes of such caliber, the ribs are undoubtedly exceptional. "Grandson, eat up. This clay pot rice is ready." Grandma has tasted it and assures it is both nutritious and delicious. In response, the grandson merely emitted a soft whimper. Upon closer inspection, the pot contained not a single rib, only a few chunks of taro, some greens, and rice steeped in rib broth remained. Unbeknownst to her, she had sampled so much, there was hardly any left. The grandson's right hand was firmly grasped by her, stubbornly clutching a spoon, yearning to snatch some food but unable to reach it. His other hand, lacking in chopstick proficiency, could only watch helplessly as Grandma devoured the ribs that rightfully belonged to him. "Grandma is so naughty. She steals my food." His little mouth pouted, and he truly cried like a grandson. His piercing cries drew the attention of passers-by. Alarmed, Grandma hurriedly scooped a spoonful of rice mixed with taro and meat juice and stuffed it into her grandson's mouth. The sonorous cries transformed into soft whimpers, soon evolving into eager chewing. At such a tender age, children are easily appeased. Even rice mingled with meat juice can satisfy him to the brim. With each mouthful, his eyes sparkled brighter. By the end, his eyes shone like searchlights, as if this were the most delectable food he had ever tasted since birth. Even the greens he typically shunned were consumed entirely, as they absorbed the meat juice. Usually, family members would have to coax, threaten, and entice him just to eat the leaves, leaving the stems behind. Often, children's picky eating is not due to a lack of understanding, but rather their heightened sensitivity, allowing them to perceive nuances that escape adult senses. Not only are children sharp of hearing and sight, but they can also detect odors undetectable to adults. And their tongues can discern the nearly imperceptible bitterness in ordinary vegetables. It is human nature to favor sweetness over bitterness. If these subtle, unpleasant flavors were eliminated, children would be more than willing to consume vegetables. Just like this pot of clay pot rice, where the bitterness of the oil wheat greens was completely neutralized, leaving only sweetness. The fat and bone oil exuded from the ribs formed a thin layer on the greens, preventing discoloration and oxidation, showcasing an enticing emerald hue. Even a few greens seemed insufficient. Another plate would hardly suffice. This serving of clay pot rice was meant for adults, and halfway through, the grandson was already burping repeatedly. Yet, his actions showed no sign of pause as he continued to scoop more. With one mouthful in his mouth, he scooped another with his spoon, his eyes fixed on the pot, anticipating the next bite. Concerned that her grandson might overindulge, Grandma gently patted his back, repeatedly advising, "Eat slowly, eat slowly. No one is competing with you." As soon as she spoke, she was met with her grandson's reproachful gaze. Who said no one was competing? The ribs had already been entirely claimed by Grandma. For a moment, Grandma felt embarrassed, then rose and said, "You eat slowly. I'll ask the owner to prepare another serving, and we can share the ribs then." Those few bites barely sufficed. She hadn't eaten enough, and the meat was all gone. At this moment, Grandma resolutely decided against cooking. She and her grandson would simply enjoy clay pot rice for lunch. As Suanzi observed his grandmother continuing to order dishes, he was filled with delight. In an effort to save some rice to accompany the dishes, he deliberately slowed down his eating pace. He picked up the slightly charred rice crust, savoring it with great care. The golden-hued crust, dry and crisp, crunched loudly with each bite, reminiscent of potato chips, yet more resilient in texture. So delectable was it that he found himself lifting his feet and closing his eyes in sheer enjoyment, relishing its lingering flavors that left an indelible impression. Ding Yong, sharing a similar reaction, was equally stuffed, reclining in his chair with a distended belly, squinting in the sun. From the perspective of passers-by, this scene appeared rather amusing. In the winter, both individuals were bundled up, round and puffy, sporting hats to shield against the wind. From a distance, the pair resembled two plush teddy bears. Just by observing their relaxed postures, one could sense their profound happiness in that moment. Thus, onlookers were compelled to pause, curious about the nature of the food that could evoke such joy. "Boss, what are you selling? How much for it?" Chapter 114. Is this yellow braised chicken? No. This is a succubus. An increasing number of passers-by lingered, drawing the attention of several nearby vendors, who couldn't help but peek out. Previously, they had all been invisible, with business dwindling, so what had suddenly attracted such a crowd? From afar, the vendors noticed people sitting at a folding table by the roadside, enjoying yellow braised chicken and clay pot rice. Many others carried plastic bags, taking away aluminum foil containers. Xiaolan's food stall was entirely different from the one they had previously known. It appeared that the original vendor had surrendered the stall due to inability to sustain it. But how had the new proprietor managed to attract such a thriving business? Was it a grand opening promotion, perhaps a buy-one-get-one-free deal? The vendors speculated, stroking their chins, and concluded that this was indeed the case. It was highly probable. Their stalls had not been devoid of liveliness, at least on opening day. When various promotional activities were held, there had been a buzz of customers. However, the peak of success had occurred right at the outset, with opening day being the pinnacle of business. It was a case of losing money for the sake of attracting attention. Naturally, customers flocked to enjoy the deals. Yet, once the discounts ceased, the clientele dwindled significantly. Nevertheless, these vendors maintained high prices, accurately targeting their customer demographic, which enabled them to continue operating, managing to avoid losses, and even making a modest profit. For instance, the sale of coffee and ice cream catered to a specific clientele. Residents in upscale neighborhoods cherished a bourgeois lifestyle, cultivating a daily coffee habit, while many well-paid workers in the vicinity had grown accustomed to grabbing a cup on their way to work. With an elementary school and a kindergarten nearby, children constituted the primary consumers of ice cream. Although winter saw a decline in business, turning the ice cream ingredients into hot beverages sufficed to sustain them until the next peak season. As for the roadside stalls selling clay pot rice, each vendor shook their heads with a hint of sympathy. How could a roadside stall compete with the chain restaurants in the nearby shopping center? The selection of nearby stores is abundant, and the ambience is quite delightful, allowing one to stroll a few steps rather than endure the biting cold while eating outdoors. It remains uncertain how long this vendor will be able to sustain their stall. One can only hope they endure for at least a month. The loss of their stall would likely deter customers from visiting. The vendors extended their heartfelt blessings to Xiaolan. Meanwhile, a worker returned to the office with a box of fragrant yellow braised chicken rice purchased from Xiaolan's stall. Just as they settled at their workstation, ready to indulge, a message arrived from a colleague. "Fair, Please assist in modifying this image. I've marked the areas that need adjustment. I'm counting on you. It's urgent. We need to be online by 2 o'clock. Wu Feier was renowned for her gentle disposition and willingness to help. With such a plea from her colleague, she had no choice but to set aside her chopsticks and lend a hand. What seemed to be a simple task of repositioning elements and altering text ended up consuming her entire lunch hour. Upon finishing, she looked up to find that her colleagues had already eaten and begun their afternoon rest. The blackout curtains had been drawn, leaving no trace of light to penetrate the room. As more colleagues settled down, someone rose to turn off the lights, plunging the entire floor into darkness. Wu Feier's stomach growled audibly, prompting her to carefully navigate around her co-workers' chairs as she made her way to the dining area. There, a microwave awaited to heat her meal. She felt fortunate that she had chosen the yellow braised chicken rice instead of clay pot rice, which, contained in aluminum foil, could not be microwaved. The chicken, however, might lose its tenderness after reheating, becoming somewhat dry. Alas, such was the fate of her once promising meal. As Wu Feier entered the dining area, the air was thick with a medley of enticing aromas, a chaotic symphony of home-cooked delights. The scents of bitter melon and radish intertwined with those of fish, shrimp, chicken, and duck. The building, with its windows sealed and only heating on, trapped these fragrances like lingering spirits, refusing to dissipate. As she approached the microwave, an inexplicable sensation washed over her, akin to being playfully teased by a throng of flamboyantly dressed young women. In her youth, she had donned delicate spring garments, leaning against a bridge, surrounded by vibrant, beckoning sleeves. At first glance, the atmosphere felt warm and inviting, almost flirtatious. Yet, alas, Wu Feier was also a woman. The flirtatious glances from the girls misdirected to an unappreciative recipient could hardly be deemed a delightful surprise. Thus, despite her hunger, the fluttering of colorful scarves only startled her. Leaving no time to evade, she waved away the lingering scents, opened her takeout box, and prepared to heat her rice. Lifting the lid slightly, she placed it in the microwave, setting it to high for 2 minutes. It need not be scalding hot. A gentle warmth would suffice, as she needed to finish quickly before returning to work in an hour. As the rice heated, a subtle, soothing aroma began to waft through the air. It was sweet and mellow, pure in flavor, making her mouth water in anticipation. Wu Feier found herself inadvertently wandering into a bustling alley of flowers and willows, her heart racing in a state of panic. In her bewilderment, she stumbled into a scholarly retreat, where the harmonious sound of reciting texts and the fragrant aroma of ink and tea enveloped her, instantly bringing her a sense of tranquility. She stood there, savoring the enticing scent of rice, pondering her genuine hunger. Suddenly, she realized that merely having a bowl of rice would suffice. Just that simple serving could satisfy her completely. Little did she know, the rice was meticulously selected silky rice by Xiaolan, fresh and new. Regardless of her hunger, the mere fragrance of the rice could compel anyone to devour it entirely. Ding! 2 minutes had elapsed, and she retrieved the rice, gently cracking open the lid of the braised chicken to allow it to warm. However, upon touching the freshly cooked rice, she noted its warmth was only moderate, not sufficiently hot. Clearly, 2 minutes was too brief. The chicken could warm a little longer, using its savory juices to impart some heat to the rice. With that thought, Wu Feier adjusted the timer to 5 minutes. As she released the knob, the microwave whirred to life. In that moment, the gears of fate began to turn. Unbeknownst to Wu Feier, in 5 minutes, she would become the first woman in the company's history to awaken an entire floor from slumber with the aroma of heated food. Furthermore, her actions would prompt the establishment of 3 new regulations within the company. Approximately 2 minutes later, the closest rows of workstations to the dining area bore the brunt of the onslaught. Employees awoke with dazed expressions, unable to discern whether they were still dreaming or had returned to reality. If this was reality, why was there such an enchanting, almost magical fragrance? If it was a dream, why was this delightful aroma only perceptible yet not consumable? As their minds spun in confusion, the fragrance of the braised chicken embarked on its conquest. In less than a minute, it had traversed the entire floor, claiming dominion wherever it wafted. During slumber, individuals are at their most vulnerable and defenseless. The allure of the braised chicken faced no resistance. It swiftly conquered, leaving its captives powerless to resist. The braised chicken demonstrated that, in the face of absolute charm, both men and women would succumb effortlessly. It was not a delicate courtesan, but rather a force to be reckoned with. The air reverberated with the braised chicken's audacious laughter, rendering everyone its subservient admirers. Infatuated and entranced, it was a sorcery, a bewitching enchantment. Thus, heads began to rise restlessly from their desks. The churn of stomach acids not only dissolved their recently consumed lunches, but also roiled within, as if threatening to erupt and consume the office furnishings entirely. Yet, everyone struggled to maintain composure, refraining from uttering a word, their breaths growing heavier. In the dimness, they exchanged furtive glances with their neighbors, unable to discern one another's features, yet feeling the intensity of their gazes, akin to beasts lying in wait within the shadows. They dared not speak, fearing to disturb the slumber of others and awaken them to calamity. Yet, each individual harbored the same thoughts. Everyone had awakened, yet silence enveloped the room. The only sounds were the soft swallows and breaths resonating throughout the office space. As the clock approached 2 o'clock, Wu Feier stealthily returned to her workspace, eager to wait for the lights to illuminate before settling at her desk. She prided herself on her light steps, yet the moment she entered the office, her fragrant aura surged forth like a tempest, a tsunami in its wake. A colleague near the light switch sprang up and promptly flicked it on. The sharp click echoed like a jolt to every nerve, causing nearly everyone to leap from their seats. Startled by the numerous gazes fixated upon her, Wu Feier gasped. A mere glance revealed dozens of eyes staring intently, each pair wild and half awake. Goodness, could it be that everyone had indulged in revelry in her absence? Wu Feier nearly contemplated calling for help. Fortunately, she spotted a friendly coworker rushing towards her. Feier, where have you been? You smell incredible. What did you eat? The young woman inquired, sniffing around Wu Feier. Dumbfounded, Wu Feier stammered. I just went for lunch. Why is everyone acting so strange? A few familiar female colleagues gathered around. Also sniffing at her, you don't know? While we were napping, a delightful aroma wafted through, and it jolted us awake. Did you heat up food? What did you prepare? We sent someone to the dining area, but they reported nothing unusual, only a recently used microwave. At that moment, Wu Feier began to piece together the situation. A flush of embarrassment crossed her face. Oh no. She had sensed trouble the moment she caught a whiff of the rich flavor of the braised chicken. She hadn't even dared to eat in the dining area. She had clutched her piping hot dish, exited, turned right, and taken the elevator down to a convenience store to enjoy her meal. Little did she expect that the aroma would cause such a stir. Seeing more and more colleagues converge, inquiring about her lunch, she quickly confessed to avoid a thorough interrogation. It was from the stall at the entrance of Lujing Huading. I bought the braised chicken rice, and they also sell clay pot rice. The price was a tad steep, with the cheapest dish costing 40 yuan. However, her colleagues, already deprived of their afternoon slumber due to the tantalizing scent, were far more concerned with one thing. Was it delicious? How did it taste? Wu Feier succinctly encapsulated the experience. It smells divine, and tastes even better. This revelation elicited gasps of astonishment from the group. Goodness, if it smelled that exquisite. How delightful must it be to taste? We must buy it. Let us go tonight. Hopefully, they're still selling. Wu Feier thought the matter had settled, as no one pursued the issue of her disrupting their afternoon rest. Little did she know, calamity was yet to unfold. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the president of the company arrived at work and happened to select the elevator that Wu Feier had previously occupied, from the 1st to the 12th floor. One can only wonder what sensations the president experienced. All that was evident was that upon exiting the elevator, he was incessantly sniffing, tilting his head left and right as if to discern a particular scent. Were it not for the need to maintain his image, he might have even crouched down to sniff the ground. Uncharacteristically, he did not retreat to his office, but instead took a stroll around the entire office floor, ostensibly to inquire about the staff's work and to uplift their spirits. The employees of the company felt an overwhelming sense of trepidation, akin to walking on thin ice. Unexpectedly, after completing his round, the president positioned himself behind Li Feier. Wu Feier was engrossed in her design work, acutely aware of the prickling sensation on her back, reminiscent of being scrutinized by school leaders during a class. Seated in the last row, she could almost feel the gaze of the principal, the head of academics, and the grade leader fixated on her, observing how she took notes. With a determined demeanor, she opened her heavily illustrated textbook and notebook, feigning concentration on her studies. The atmosphere was strikingly similar. Her computer was still logged into WeChat. Just moments ago, she had been chatting animatedly with her friends, venting frustrations typical of overworked employees. The conversation was unremarkable, filled with curses aimed at their superiors, disdain for colleagues, complaints about their bosses, thoughts of despair, and whimsical wishes for sudden wealth. As soon as the president arrived, Wu Feier quickly switched to her design software, pretending to be diligently engaged in her work. The president, however, showed no intention of leaving, fixating on her for half an hour as she worked on her designs. Finally, he broke the silence with a compliment. Your design looks pretty appealing. What? She coughed. I mean, your design is quite good. Wu Feier, feeling the weight of his gaze, stammered. Oh, thank you. The president, seemingly recognizing her discomfort, kindly reassured her. It's all right. Don't feel pressured. I simply wish to gain a better understanding of my subordinates' work. We are all part of the same company. It's essential to communicate more and not to be so reserved. Just as he was about to suggest sharing links to delicious takeout options in the company group chat, an unexpected incident occurred. Wu Feier, overly anxious, inadvertently minimized her design software, leaving the WeChat chat window prominently displayed in the center of her screen. With no other windows to obscure it, the chat interface was fully revealed. The latest messages showcased the thoughts of Wu Feier, the shy and reserved young woman. I can't stand that big fool of a president. Walking around like that, ruining my work mood. Does he love to stroll so much? He arrives at work every afternoon. Even pigs wouldn't sleep that long. When he comes in, it's either for a meeting or a discussion. He just drags everyone down. Does he not realize how busy I am in the afternoons? Busy enough to have to hold back my frustrations just to finish my work before I can take a break? If he pushes me too far, I might just leave and lay the blame at his feet. Even the colleagues from the neighboring department are a bunch of fools. They asked me to revise designs at noon, forcing me to cut into my lunch hour to help them in a hurry, only for them to end up using the original version. I could just explode. I yearned to extract the nodules from my breast and obliterate them. All the while singing merrily, la la la, I am the renowned little expert. Such explosive prose, such a splendid state of mind. With a fleeting glance, it remains uncertain how much the CEO actually perceived. Nonetheless, Wu Feier hastily closed WeChat. Then, shyly and bashfully, she stole a glance at the CEO, only to find him instinctively retreating a step. This slight gesture, though minuscule, inflicted a profound wound. It became evident that the CEO had witnessed something he ought not to have seen. Wu Feier could only hope that he did not catch sight of her comment from the day she intended to unleash her frustrations upon him. She merely spoke in jest. She would never truly act upon such thoughts. After all, working is bound to involve a touch of unrefined behavior. Once her shift concluded, her beauty, physique, social etiquette, commendable virtues, and even her very soul would undergo a transformation. CEO, the CEO promptly interjected, do your best. I recall I have urgent matters to attend to. Following that, he practically fled, as if fearing that any delay would result in Wu Feier actually unleashing her ire upon him. With a face of despair, Wu Feier messaged her best friend, it's over, I'm done for. I'm about to lose my job. She feared that she would soon be dismissed for mistakenly pressing the spacebar in extra time during formatting. However, after a long afternoon of waiting, the company announced 3 new regulations. To all members, please keep the following regulations in mind. 1. Do not ask colleagues for assistance with work-related matters during non-working hours. In case of emergencies, please seek special approval. 2. Colleagues are encouraged to drink more water, frequent the restroom, and pay attention to their physical and mental well-being. 3. If a meeting requires the CEO's presence, the time can be set for the morning, not necessarily in the afternoon. Prior consultation is required. As Wu Feier sighed in relief, she was also engulfed by embarrassment and indignation. Alas, the CEO had indeed seen her intention to unleash her frustrations. Initially, she had planned to resign before being dismissed, preserving a shred of dignity. Now, should she still resign? The first 2 new regulations seemed quite humane. Wu Feier found herself ensnared in a dilemma. Meanwhile, Deng Yang was also caught in a quandary. After indulging at Xiaolan's stall and returning home with a full belly, he was greeted by the enticing aroma of food wafting through the air. Shocked, he suddenly remembered that a cooking auntie would be coming to prepare a meal. By the time he realized it was too late to cancel, the food was already prepared. Upon opening the door, he spotted someone bustling about in the kitchen. This auntie had been a reliable collaborator for a long time, and he had already shared the door code with her. You're back? I've prepared the dishes and tidied up. I'm off to prepare lunch for another family now. Call me if you need anything. Just as Deng Yang was still contemplating, the auntie hurriedly untied her apron and left with a garbage bag in hand. Wangma, Deng Yang gazed at the table laden with 4 dishes and a soup. His brow furrowed in perplexity. What am I to do now? That night, Deng Yang deliberately called his wife, urging her to return home early. Typically, my wife arrives home around 7 o'clock, by which time our daughter has completed her homework. The 3 of us then venture out for dinner, followed by a leisurely stroll in the square to aid digestion. On this particular evening, as usual, the family stepped out of the community gate. However, mid-stride, Deng Yang suddenly halted. Did you not say you would take us to a delightful eatery? His wife inquired, puzzled by his abrupt stop. Deng Yang's face was a canvas of bewilderment. The culinary destination he had promised his wife and child was Xiaolan's clay pot rice. The evening hours are bustling with patrons, marking the peak of business. Even in a quieter setting, the nearby shopping center would draw a crowd, albeit modestly. He had never anticipated that the vendor would not be operating that night. It was a lapse on his part. He should have confirmed with the vendor beforehand. Now, with his boasting having reached its crescendo, he pondered how he could salvage the situation. Before the stall, a number of customers appeared equally perplexed. These individuals were either repeat patrons from lunchtime or colleagues of those who had come specifically to enjoy the dish. Some had been waiting since 6 o'clock, unaware that the vendor was deviating from the norm. The stall remained in place, yet it was unattended. How curious that the vendor would not set up shop at night. What could Xiaolan possibly be doing? He was, of course, attending to pressing matters. Given that his assignment originated from the Southern District Bureau, it was imperative for him to meet with his contacts. Such meetings necessitate discretion. It would be inappropriate to arrive in a food cart. So he left the vehicle behind and took a taxi instead. Fortunately, his food cart had recently been equipped with a full surveillance feature, ensuring he would be promptly alerted should any issues arise. To maintain anonymity, the rendezvous was set not at the police station, but at a bubble tea shop. Upon entering, Xiaolan sensed an unsettling atmosphere, feeling distinctly out of place. Inside the bubble tea shop, groups of young women engaged in lively conversation. Business professionals tapped away on their laptops, clusters of students gathered, and couples reveled in sweet intimacy. The sight of 2 adult men, particularly one seated rigidly across from the other, was indeed peculiar. The palpable awkwardness between them only heightened the strangeness of their meeting. To an outside observer, they might appear to be adversaries preparing for a confrontation, their expressions serious. However, There was little choice in the matter. During official duties, officers are prohibited from consuming alcohol, precluding any gatherings at a bar. One had access to a cafeteria while the other prepared his own meals, eliminating the possibility of meeting at a restaurant. A cafe would have been a suitable option with its serene environment conducive to conversation, yet indulging in coffee at this hour would render a restful night unattainable. Suggesting a meeting at a park, hotel, or shopping district would have seemed even more absurd. After careful consideration, both concluded that the bubble tea shop was indeed the most fitting venue for their discussion. The combination of milk and tea sounded wholesome and invigorating. Yet they were taken aback to discover that the establishment's target demographic did not align with their own. Xiaolon, I would like a glass of pure milk. Contact person, I would prefer a cup of pure tea. Tea shop attendant, I apologize, but we do not have pure milk or pure tea. Kindly select from the beverages listed on the menu. What is this treasure tea with taro mud, boba, sweet fermented rice, and cheese foam? Xiaolon, pointing at the signature milk tea recommendation on the menu, could not help but inquire. He seldom dines out and rarely enters tea shops. Unaware that the names of milk teas have evolved to such an extent, the attendant, smiling politely, replied, "It is a milk tea infused with taro mud, boba, sweet fermented rice, and round dumplings, topped with cheese foam and sprinkled with dried osmanthus. The entire cup of milk tea is as richly colorful as a treasure. Hence the name treasure tea." To Xiaolon, it sounded remarkably akin to an intricately made treasure porridge. After pondering for a moment, Xiaolon said, "Then I shall have a cup of milk tea, without taro mud, without boba, without sweet fermented rice, without round dumplings, without cheese, without osmanthus, and without tea. Thank you." The attendant's smile faltered slightly. "So, you would like just milk?" Xiaolon nodded. "Yes, just milk." The contact person, imitating him, said, "I too would like a cup of milk tea, without taro mud, without boba, without sweet fermented rice, without round dumplings, without cheese, without osmanthus, and without milk. Thank you." The attendant could no longer maintain her smile and began to lose enthusiasm. "So, you only want tea?" The contact person affirmed with a sound. The attendant, resigned, complied with their unusual requests. Eventually, they obtained their desired cups of pure milk and pure tea, each priced at a steep 22 yuan. This encounter with the tea shop appeared to be a victory for them, yet they were thoroughly outmatched. Together, they assumed the role of unwitting patrons, seemingly forging a hint of camaraderie. The contact person extended his hand. "Greetings, I am Ouyang. Xiaolon initially found the name pleasant, but the next moment, the words spoken sent his thoughts spiraling. "You may call me Yang Yu." "Xiaolon, huh? Aren't you surnamed Ouyang?" Ouyang Yu awkwardly withdrew his hand, lifting his cup to take a sip of tea. "No, my surname is O, and my given name is Yang Yu. It is not a compound surname." "Very well. Pleased to meet you. I am Xiaolon." "Ouyang Yu, I am aware. You are quite renowned. The reason I sought you out for assistance is due to your previous outstanding achievements. I invited you here to discuss the details of our mission face to face. Allow me to briefly outline our operational deployment." As they delved into familiar territory, the awkwardness between them dissipated. If one were to overlook their side-by-side seating, with hands covering their mouths and eyes darting, they might appear to be whispering gossip. "Ouyang Yu, our bureau has a major task force dedicated to following up on this case. Within the task force, some individuals initially focused on economic crimes, while others investigated espionage. Eventually, they converged on the same suspect. The individual suspected of faking his own death to escape is named Liang Gaofei. He is an executive at a company, and we initially investigated him for embezzlement. As we continued our inquiries, we discovered that he was selling confidential company data abroad." Xiaolon nodded, indicating that he was attentively listening. "At last, the identity of the perpetrator has been unveiled, Liang Gaofei." Ouyang Yu retrieved his phone and displayed a photograph of the suspect to Xiaolon, revealing a man who appeared cultured and refined. It was evident that he had led a life of privilege, with a comfortable standard of living, yet his insatiable greed drove him to betray national interests. A trait that is utterly contemptible, an archetype of a genteel scoundrel. Ouyang Yu elaborated on the arrangements made by their police department. "To be frank, ever since his incident, our investigative team has been monitoring his household, specifically the residences of his wife and mistress. Even now, colleagues are on shifts, keeping a watchful eye. They are clearly aware of the surveillance, seldom venturing outside, and engaging in minimal interaction, save for necessary hospital visits for prenatal checkups. However, amidst our vigilant observation, anomalies have emerged. According to feedback from our undercover operative, it is highly probable that Liang Gaofei has returned and has re-established contact with both his wife and mistress." At this point, Ouyang Yu glanced around cautiously, lowering his voice to impart a sense of urgency. "To protect the identity of our undercover agent, I cannot divulge too much detail. I can only state that our police force has devised a comprehensive strategy. However, given the criminal's dual role as a spy, he and his accomplices are exceptionally skilled at disguise and possess a strong counter-surveillance awareness. Therefore, we have enlisted your expertise as a master of disguise to assist us." Ouyang Yu raised his teacup solemnly and addressed Xiaolon. "Comrade Xiaolon, you are our second line of defense in this operation. It is imperative that you maintain your anonymity and assist us in apprehending Liang Gaofei along with his network of spies." Understanding his intent, Xiaolan cooperatively lifted her milk cup. Rest assured, I shall remain discreet and collaborate with you as necessary, leaving no stone unturned in our pursuit of justice. The two cups gently clinked together, symbolizing a pact forged in the pursuit of their shared ideals and goals. Others, oblivious to the fervor within their hearts, found their actions peculiar, celebrating with milk tea as if it were a toast to spirits, unaware of the fire that fueled their resolve. As they parted ways, Ouyang Yu patted Xiaolan on the shoulder, saying, should there be any signs of trouble or if you require assistance, do not hesitate to contact me. I will coordinate with the action team on your behalf. Upon exiting the milk tea shop, Xiaolan reviewed the surveillance footage from the food cart and noticed an influx of customers at her stall. It was her first day of operation, a trial run, and to her surprise, she already had returning patrons. Unfortunately, she had not prepared an ample supply of ingredients, and by around 3 in the afternoon, her stock was depleted, prompting her to send Hulai home early. After rewatching the footage several times, Xiaolan realized just how efficient the recording capability of the food cart was. Not only did it monitor customer traffic, but it also captured the comings and goings at the entrance of the green landscape Huading community. The clarity was exceptional, surpassing any surveillance camera she had encountered before. Most impressive was its facial recognition feature, capable of tallying the number of times individuals appeared within the camera's field of view. Once anomalies and suspicious individuals are detected, the video clips will be promptly sent to Xiaolan's mobile phone. In light of this, it would be prudent to secure the snack cart at the stall, allowing it to function as a surveillance camera until the completion of the task. Hu Lai and Lu Dongbin, having previously acquired an electric tricycle for the purpose of transporting goods due to their daily need to purchase ingredients, can easily manage the logistics of delivering supplies while keeping the vigilant snack cart stationary. The following day, Xiaolan arrived at the stall with Hu Lai. The rear seat of their tricycle was laden with a quantity of ingredients that had doubled since the previous day. Based on the foot traffic from yesterday, Xiaolan estimated the amount of ingredients needed for today. As they were unloading and preparing for business, a familiar face approached them. It was Ding Yang, who, upon arrival, lamented at Xiaolan's snack stall. Boss, why didn't you set up last night? I specifically brought my wife and daughter to enjoy dinner here. But we were left disappointed. Xiaolan smiled apologetically, even though her mask concealed her expression. The previous day had been a trial run, and she had not prepared an abundance of ingredients. Once the stock was depleted, she returned home. I see, Ding Yang continued. Make sure you prepare more today? You wouldn't believe it, but there were so many people waiting at your stall last night. It startled me. I thought a brawl was about to break out with everyone gathered around. I was too afraid to let my wife and child come near. Xiaolan internally acknowledged. I know. I saw it on the surveillance. Rest assured, we will be open for lunch and dinner today. I will return home to fetch another batch of ingredients this afternoon. Seeing the joy radiating from Deng Yang's face, Xiaolan added, however, you've come a bit too early. I haven't prepared the meals yet. Could you perhaps return in another hour? Deng Yang smiled dimmed instantly. Isn't there a way to expedite it? I want to pack something to take home to my wife. The clay pot rice can be prepared more swiftly. I have the ingredients ready at home. It will take about 20 minutes. All right, that sounds fantastic. Thank you, boss. Chapter 116. The glutton sneaks in such fine delicacies alone. Deng Yang was resolute in bringing his wife along on this escapade. When his wife learned that he intended to take the family to a street vendor, she had not held back her critique. I see you've been indulging in too many nutritious meals. A rare feast of heavy oil and salt has dazzled you. Like a child experiencing instant noodles for the first time. Look at you, so unaccomplished, yet you boast as if it were an art form. Just a few takeout meals, and you'll be humbled. All that grease and salt lacks nutrition, and soon enough, you'll yearn for Wang Ma's cooking again. I, with my busy work schedule, barely have the chance to enjoy her meals at noon. You, the affluent idler, have yet to appreciate what you have. It was evident that his wife harbored considerable resentment regarding her daily routine of takeout, while her husband savored home-cooked meals. Originally, Wang Ma had been hired for the couple, as during less demanding work periods, his wife would routinely drive home for lunch. Subsequently, perhaps out of a desire to avoid the time wasted in back and forth, his wife seldom returned home, opting instead to order takeout at the office like her colleagues. Wang Ma's nutritious meals, prepared at noon, were relished solely by Deng Yang, evoking a sense of envy in his wife. Unfortunately, the competition for Wang Ma's dinner services in the evening was fierce, with numerous households vying for her culinary skills, making it nearly impossible to secure her for dinner. His wife's resentment simmered beneath the surface. She expressed no objections to Deng Yang, except for one point. She claimed that the clay pot rice from the stall nearby was delectable solely due to its excessive oil and salt, a notion Deng Yang deemed prejudiced. He was determined to dispel this bias, wishing to prove that he was not lacking in worldly experience. He pulled out his phone and messaged his wife. Don't order takeout today. I shall bring you something delicious. His wife's reply was one of astonishment, followed by a flying kiss. Did you bring me food made by Wang Ma? Thank you, darling. Upon reading her response, Deng Yang discreetly deleted the mention of the clay pot rice from the roadside stall. With a devious smile, he replied, indeed, it is Wang Ma. She has recently been experimenting with new dishes. I brought you something to taste and rate. The noon traffic was congested, What usually took him 10 minutes to reach his wife's office turned into a 30-minute ordeal. It was no wonder she had become disinclined to return for lunch, as the journey consumed far too much time. Given her appetite, she would often take merely a couple of bites before declaring herself full. For those few morsels, the trip home hardly seemed worthwhile. It was more sensible to remain at the office for a longer lunch break. Upon his arrival, he messaged his wife, who instructed him to come directly upstairs. During lunch, the lobby access will be open. Just come to the 20th floor without needing to swipe your ID card. She informed him. Deng Yang felt a twinge of unease. Isn't it still a bit early for lunch? Would it be inappropriate for me to go up so soon to deliver your meal? Perhaps I should wait downstairs for half an hour? His wife replied, no need. Just take the elevator up. You'll understand when you arrive. Soon enough, Deng Yang comprehended the meaning behind her words. He spent a full 30 minutes merely waiting for the elevator downstairs. As lunchtime approached, numerous individuals sought to descend, while others, due to work commitments, aimed to ascend. The elevator halted on each floor, rendering it impossible to reach the ground level. Indeed, securing a meal was no simple task. In such a business building, a skyscraper designed to accommodate the maximum number of occupants within the smallest footprint, the crowd was overwhelming, yet the elevators were woefully insufficient. The aspiration to work in such a prestigious establishment, once thought to elevate one's status, had instead transformed them into worker ants in an anthill or bees in a hive. Within their tiny cubicles, they toiled relentlessly, from birth to death. People claim that an ordinary life consists of 3 meals a day through the seasons. Yet how ordinary is this? 4 high-income families like Deng Yang's, sharing a meal together as a family of 3, had become a luxury. In the morning, their daughter hurried off to school, while his wife was preoccupied with her job, and he was engrossed in full-time stock trading. The stock market was ever-changing, demanding his constant attention to various news dynamics, necessitating rapid buying and selling. He indeed wished for his wife to feel secure at home, luxuriating as a wealthy lady. Yet the exorbitant tuition fees for their daughter, coupled with their hefty monthly mortgage, rendered him unable to utter such words with conviction. Increasingly, he perceived the world as an expansive game, where both novice and seasoned players alike found themselves perpetually short of game currency, regardless of one's income. There always seemed to be pitfalls designed to ensnare one's finances, leaving a constant sense of financial strain. They lacked not the means to purchase food, but rather the time to sit down and share a meal together. The true erosion of marital passion stemmed not from a third party, but from the interminable waits for elevators and the never-ending traffic jams. After a moment of reflection, the elevator finally arrived at their destination. Exiting, he sent a message to his wife, who promptly emerged to lead him to her office. Along the way, countless individuals greeted her with respect, calling her Sister Xian. Once the door closed, his wife transformed back into the familiar Xian. What delightful dish has Wang Ma prepared to warrant such a special visit? He inquired. You'll see for yourself, he replied, revealing the aluminum food container. As she peered inside, disbelief crossed her face. Aren't there supposed to be 4 dishes and a soup? Why is there only one today? He quickly thrust the chopsticks into her hands, urging her, stop asking so many questions, just eat. Hurry, and tell me how it tastes. Reluctantly, she picked up the chopsticks and sampled a piece of chicken. The meal, still warm in its insulated container, beckoned her. What do you think of Wang Ma's cooking? He inquired, yet she offered no verbal response. Her eager bites conveyed everything. As she savored her meal with the fervor of a hungry little sparrow transformed into a gluttonous pelican, the enticing aroma wafted throughout the small office. Witnessing his wife's enthusiastic consumption, he felt reassured that all was well. Once she finished, he awaited her praise with a proud smile, only to be met with 2 playful punches. You rascal, eating so well at home without telling me. When did Wang Ma's cooking reach such heights? You must divulge. As he coughed, attempting to explain, she playfully struck him again. Why did you have to tell me? You've ruined my dieting plans. How could you bring me food like this? How can I possibly resist? Ah, woman, your nature is ever-changing, he thought, gazing at the empty bowl before her, feeling a twinge of grievance. So, should I bring you lunch or not? I was hoping to cater to your preferences in the future. His wife, cradling her head in confusion, oscillated between indulgence and her desire for beauty. After a few seconds, she suddenly raised her hand, causing him to flinch, fearing another playful jab. Instead, she cupped his face and planted 2 firm kisses on his cheeks. You promised to bring me lunch. There can be no turning back. I'll just exercise for an hour every day. I won't gain weight. He beamed foolishly. I won't go back on my word. Just don't regret it. He realized that delivering her lunch daily would take over an hour of his time. In this fleeting hour, the global landscape may undergo numerous transformations, ultimately influencing the stock market and, in turn, the figures displayed on his bank card. The significance of these figures lies in their direct correlation to the sustenance of his family. Given this, why does he not dedicate this hour to nurturing his marriage instead? It is now midday, a peak time for foot traffic, as individuals gradually emerge from the nearby commercial buildings. Most workers descend to retrieve their takeout, yet at this moment, a throng of people emerges, marching purposefully towards a common destination. This destination is not the takeout lockers, but rather the shopping center. Typically, patrons visit the shopping center for dining, But such gatherings are sparse, with individuals pairing off and proceeding separately. Rarely does one witness a large group surging forth, akin to migratory geese heading south. At the forefront of this assembly is a seemingly demure and shy young lady. What is transpiring? Is the company engaging in a team-building exercise? Speculation flits through their minds, and they quickly divert their gaze. Had they inquired, they would have received a shocking revelation. They are all heading to purchase claypot rice. This leading girl is none other than Wu Feier, who yesterday stirred a commotion in the office with her food-warming antics. She had not rallied her colleagues in the group chat. Instead, she noticed there were merely 20 minutes left until the end of the workday and sought to discreetly feign a trip to the restroom, all the while intending to sneak away for a meal. Such clandestine escapades cannot be executed with fanfare. She believed she had risen with great subtlety, making no sound and leaving no trace. To her astonishment, a multitude of colleagues rose in unison, trailing behind her into the elevator. Upon reaching the ground floor, as she stepped out of the elevator, she was taken aback to find that all 5 other elevators had disgorged her colleagues. Wu Feier's pupils dilated in shock, and she instinctively lowered her gaze, pretending to engage with her phone to avoid meeting the eyes of these semi-acquainted co-workers. What was happening? How had everyone seemingly mastered the art of slacking off overnight? Subsequently, she hurriedly made her way toward the claypot rice stall, only to discover that a significant number of people were following her. A glance over her shoulder revealed a sea of colleagues. Were they merely coincidentally on the same route? Or were they indeed tailing her? The most absurd part was the presence of the CEO among the crowd. This revelation weighed heavily on Wu Feier, leaving her uncertain whether to pause and allow the CEO to proceed ahead or to act as if she were oblivious, considering it was now after hours. Caught in this internal conflict, she found herself arriving at Xiaolan's stall, with her entourage of colleagues trailing closely behind, none having strayed. Ah, here it is. There truly is a stall selling claypot rice. I didn't see it last night and thought I had gone astray. It appears they simply had tea opened then. The aroma wafting through the air is simply divine. Listening to the chatter of her colleagues behind her, Wu Feier finally confirmed that indeed, they were following her. To her astonishment, she had arrived quite early, having stealthily slipped away, yet a line had already formed at Xiaolan's stall. The queue, while not excessively long, stood out remarkably against the backdrop of several desolate stalls nearby. The patrons waiting were all returning customers from the previous day, including the charming pair of grandmother and grandson. Today, the grandmother bypassed purchasing any vegetables and headed straight to Xiaolan's stall. They had ordered a time-consuming dish of braised chicken, and though they arrived early, they found themselves waiting for quite a while. As the grandmother observed Xiaolan preparing the chicken, she nodded in approval, clearly an aficionado of culinary delights. What a splendid chicken, she exclaimed. Look at those legs, long and robust, clearly well exercised. The skin is neither too thin nor too thick, with hardly any excess fat underneath. And the meat is tender. Oh, even boiled with a pinch of salt, it would be delectable. After such lengthy braising, it must be absolutely fragrant. Her enthusiastic praises caught the attention of passers-by, who paused to join her in the anticipation of the braised chicken. The grandmother was akin to a living advertisement. Her words filled with vivid emotion. After extolling the virtues of the chicken, she turned her admiration towards Xiaolan's large clay pot. She lavished compliments on its shape, color, material, and luster, her envy unmistakable, eventually inquiring if Xiaolan could provide a link to purchase a similar one. Xiaolan could only reply that it was acquired from the pot's place of origin. The grandmother nodded knowingly. No wonder it is of such high quality. A pot like this must cost at least 2,000 or 3,000, right? Her remark drew the attention of several more onlookers, curious to discover what made this pot so expensive and eager to sample the sumptuous offerings it produced. Before long, the grandmother inquired about the specific store from which it was purchased, pondering whether her son, who was on a business trip, could procure one for her. Eventually, she made a startling comparison, suggesting that this clay pot was of superior quality to those commonly found on the market for ashes. For a similar price, why not invest in a clay pot? One could use it to simmer bone soup while alive, brew medicinal concoctions in sickness, and even hold ashes after passing. A pot for 3 purposes, what a bargain. Xiaolan nearly dropped her spatula in astonishment. Indeed, the wisdom of the older generation was striking, and their perspective on life and death was refreshingly open. Thankfully, a new wave of returning customers arrived, allowing Xiaolan to momentarily divert her attention. Nearby vendors selling coffee, ice cream, and toast gazed in disbelief at the throngs flocking to Xiaolan's stall. How could there be so many people? They wondered. Among the newcomers were Wu Feier and her colleagues, nearly blocking the entire street. The queue stretched, estimating around 40 to 50 individuals. Just yesterday, the other vendors were concerned that the clay pot rice stall would soon falter, but now they realized their worries were unfounded. They had not anticipated that these professionals from the business center would be so unpretentious. Some chose to take their food to go, while others brazenly braved the chilly winds to dine at roadside tables, with folding tables filled to capacity. The most astonishing sight was of individuals holding their clay pots while standing at the roadside, savoring their meal. It was incomprehensible, truly incomprehensible. Such rudimentary dining conditions, devoid of heating or even any form of shelter, seemed to be accepted by these elite individuals. Have their standards truly sunk so low? The price of this clay pot rice is not insignificant either, starting at 40 and capping at 80. This pricing is unmistakably that of a chain restaurant in a shopping mall. While chain eateries may offer a pleasant environment, what do they seek while dining by the roadside? The answer is, undoubtedly, the clay pot prepared by Xiaolan. One of the primary virtues of the clay pot is its excellent heat retention, even after the flame is extinguished. The residual warmth lingers on. Thus, discerning diners know that consuming directly from the clay pot yields a superior flavor compared to taking it to go. The clay pot serves as both a fine cooking vessel and an exquisite dining implement. Not only does it keep the freshly prepared dishes warm, but it continues to gently heat the food throughout the meal, akin to a slow simmer. As one progresses through the meal, the clay pot rice unlocks a third layer of flavor, crisp and aromatic. The broth evaporates, and the slightly charred crust becomes even more crunchy. Each grain of rice stands apart, no longer clumping together like inexperienced novices seeking warmth. Instead, they evolve independently. Every grain has undergone intense roasting, resulting in varied transformations. Some appear filled with richness, seemingly soaked in broth, with a golden exterior that belies their pure and unblemished interior. Others are fragile and hollow, having succumbed entirely to the broth's embrace, losing their essence. There are also those that adeptly navigate their surroundings, forming alliances to escape the harsh fate of the clay pot's heat. Consequently, the flavor of the clay pot rice evolves from the initial freshness to a complex, aromatic richness, continually surprising the palate. This explains why some individuals, undeterred by the biting cold, choose to dine roadside, even holding their clay pots while standing. The clay pot cradled in their arms feels like a great heater, rendering the chill of the air completely imperceptible, enveloping them in warmth. After finishing their meal, they return the pot with satisfaction, wiping their mouths and suggesting to the vendor that additional tables are needed. Xiaolan merely smiles, offering no promises. It is not the tables that are insufficient, but rather the clay pots. With the dishwashing machine working tirelessly, the 20 small clay pots barely suffice to meet the demand. Should more patrons opt for the clay pot experience, supply would soon fall short. Thus, Xiaolan hopes for more takeout orders to conserve the pots. Or perhaps a few miscreants could be apprehended to earn points for acquiring additional clay pots. Currently, he possesses 500 points, which may seem ample. Yet it is only sufficient to purchase 17 more pots. The price has risen to 500 each, as the previous pricing was exorbitant. However, he refrains from spending all his points, keeping some in reserve for unforeseen needs. As the number of guests increases, and with the tasks of cooking, collecting utensils, and attending to orders piling up, Xiaolan and Hulai find themselves overwhelmed. Consequently, they must summon Lu Dongbin from the group for assistance. Meanwhile, a persistent Liazu from the group requests to join the fray but is rebuffed on the grounds that he should be receiving treatment in a hospital. Liazi, the monk, was utterly baffled. Why should I go to the hospital? I'm not sick. Lu Dong, are you cursing me? Well, look at our friendship. Just for the sake of enjoying clay pot rice, you actually wish misfortune upon me. Ultimately, it was Xiao Lan who stepped in to placate him. You bought groceries this morning, so there's no need to trouble you. Once we get busier, we will invite you to lend a hand. Upon receiving the message, Lu Dong quickly hailed a cab. With an additional pair of hands assisting, the workload indeed lightened considerably. The nearby stall owners watched with envious eyes, marveling at the fact that just on the second day of setting up shop, they were already busy enough to need 2 helpers. However, despite their envy, the stall owners still benefited from Xiaolan's presence. After finishing their savory meals, many patrons craved something sweet, making it quite reasonable to purchase ice cream and small cakes. After indulging in the cold treats, sipping on hot coffee to welcome the afternoon work shift felt perfectly normal. Such is the power of an individual in stimulating the surrounding economy. Without Xiaolan, the street vending world would remain in perpetual darkness. As the busiest wave of customers subsided, Lu Dong, who had been diligently attending to the tables, stretched lazily. Suddenly, a dark mass invaded his line of sight, startling him into retreat, accompanied by a startled yelp. The nearby customers turned to see a pitch-black stray dog that had somehow appeared at Lu Dong's feet. Perhaps it was due to Lu Dong's nickname, Lu Dongbin, but despite having seen no dogs throughout the day, one had arrived within an hour of his presence. However, having been bitten by a dog before, with the lingering pain of 5 rabies vaccination shots still fresh in his memory, he now harbored a fear of dogs. Retreat, retreat, retreat. Lu Dong attempted to wave the dog away, but it seemed seasoned in the art of survival, easily discerning between genuine threats and bluster. Lu Dong stamped his feet in vain, yet the dog remained firmly seated, gazing at him with wide eyes. The customers, moved by the dog's pitiful expression, suggested, "It seems the dog is attracted by the aroma. Why not just feed it the leftover bones?" Yes, it looks so well behaved. Lu Dong's face turned pale. The last time he had sold skewers as an undercover vendor, a seemingly innocent dog had also looked pitiful, only to turn vicious after he offered it the leftover skewers. As if he had poisoned it. Who knew if this dog might behave in a similarly treacherous manner? Hearing the patron's remarks, Xiao Lan leaned out and called to Lu Dong, "Grab a disposable bowl, fill it with bones and leftover rice, and feed it at a distance. Don't let it linger here and disturb the customers." With Xiaolan's directive, Lu Dong had no choice but to comply. The dog could not be shooed away, so it seemed the only option was to appease it with a meal. Thus, Lu Dong gathered the leftover bones from the customers, which were primarily rib bones. Short and round, they were tender and filled with rich marrow, mixed with a small portion of leftover rice and crispy bits from the pot, creating an enticing aroma. Not only did the dog appear to be salivating, but Lu Dong found himself equally tempted. These patrons waste the ribs, whereas Lu Dong savors each bone, chewing it thoroughly before swallowing. However, not every customer possesses strong teeth. Some struggle even with crispy rice, having no choice but to abandon their meal in tears, let alone tackle bones. This inadvertently benefits the black dog nearby. Lu Dong, carrying the leftover food, walks several meters away from the stall. The dog seems almost enchanted, aware that Lu Dong intends to feed it, eagerly following him. I'm kindly offering you food, but please don't bite me later. Lu Dong thinks as he seizes the moment, tossing the disposable container onto the ground and swiftly stepping back a meter. The dog, like a hungry tiger pouncing on its prey, lunges towards the container, devouring the contents with fervor. The sound of bones cracking echoes as it crunches away, showing no concern for Lu Dong. After retreating another 5 or 6 meters, he dares to observe the dog. To his surprise, the dog shows no inclination to bite him, a stark contrast to his past experiences of feeding a dog barbecue. The dog inhales the leftovers with a frenzy, clearing the container in less than 10 seconds, before wagging its tail and approaching Lu Dong once more. Feeling anxious, Lu Dong steps back defensively, yet the dog merely sits before him, gazing intently with its tongue lolling out, drool dripping from its mouth. Its eyes sparkle with excitement, and its tail wags so rapidly it seems it might take flight. In a moment of helplessness, Lu Dong decides to dump all the leftover food from the scrap bucket for the dog. He suddenly realizes that the scrap bucket is unnecessary. The customers had eaten most of their meals, leaving little behind, and now there's a dog waiting to be fed, leaving nothing remaining. He shows the empty bucket to the black dog, saying, "Look, it's all gone. You've eaten everything. Don't come over anymore, do you understand?" The black dog appears to comprehend, finishing the last remnants before allowing Lu Dong to discard the disposable bowl into the trash without following him again. Instead, it finds a sunny spot nearby and lies down. Full and content, the dog knows how to enjoy life. After all the ingredients have been sold out by noon, Xiaolan, Hulai, and Lu Dong gather to close the stall. Lu Dong glances at the dog basking in the sun not far away and remarks, "This dog has such a good temperament, unlike the one I encountered before, which was quite heartless. I used to love dogs, but after being bitten, I became fearful." Xiaolan and Hulai exchange glances, hesitating to speak, before finally breaking the silence. Is it possible that the issue isn't the dog, but rather the food? Lu Dong pauses for a moment, then realizes, "You mean the dog doesn't like barbecue?" Xiaolan and Hulai reply, "If thinking this way makes you feel better, then so be it." They return home for an afternoon nap, and when they wake, they prepare the ingredients. The elderly man at home is surprisingly considerate, helping to peel potatoes, winning Xiaolan's favor, who rewards him with a spoonful of sauce, allowing him to do as he pleases. Lu Dong has recently discovered that the old man secretly cooks when he is not at home. Using the remaining ingredients from Xiaolan, he boiled water and prepared a bowl of noodles. Xiaolan was astonished by the old man's prodigious appetite, which seemed to rival that of 2 adult men. Unable to contain his curiosity, he inquired, "Where does your son work? In Fengling City?" Xiaolan's intention was to suggest that the old man's son accompany him to the hospital for a checkup, to ascertain if such a voracious appetite indicated any underlying issues. However, upon mentioning his son, Lao Deng immediately grew tense. "What do you know?" he stammered. Xiaolan was taken aback. Was there something he ought to know? Yet, Lao Deng's reaction clearly indicated he was concealing something. Narrowing his eyes, Xiaolan continued, "I don't believe I've seen your son visit you. The landlord who came back to collect his belongings. Could he possibly be your son's cousin? A relative from your wife's family? Otherwise, how could they be so unconcerned about letting you stay in the house?" Lao Deng failed to recognize that Xiaolan was probing for information. Having never been involved in interrogations before, he simply followed orders without any cunning. Yes. He is a relative from my wife's family. My son is also abroad, Xiaolan responded thoughtfully, a seed of doubt taking root in his mind. Perhaps he should prepare a dish of answer-inducing garlic sauce for Lao Deng. After all, as an undercover operative, it was prudent to discern the backgrounds of those around him. That night, Xiaolan returned to his stall with ingredients in hand. Hulai and Lu Dong had nearly completed their training. One could assist with cooking clay pot rice while the other attended to customers, facilitating a smooth operation. This allowed Xiaolan some respite, as the 3 could take turns observing their surroundings, fulfilling their covert mission. On the second day after his arrival, Xiaolan did not harbor expectations of significant discoveries. Instead, he remained vigilant, observing the community's dynamics. The neighborhood appeared to have only one main entrance, though there might be others. However, the primary access point was the one directly opposite Xiaolan's stall. A security guard stood watch around the clock, and entry required a swipe of an access card. The community prohibited deliveries and takeout, providing only designated areas for food drop-offs and parcel lockers. The interior landscaping was exquisite, featuring a sports area, a leisure zone, and a children's playground. In a sense, the area beneath the buildings resembled a small park, complete with a timed musical fountain. Every evening, many parents brought their children to play, or grandparents strolled with their grandchildren. For safety reasons, they seldom ventured beyond the gates at night. However, tonight presented an unusual circumstance. They noticed that the usually quiet entrance was suddenly bustling with activity. There were no more than 5 fixed stalls at the entrance. And not far off was a shopping center, where many would head for shopping and, after sufficient browsing, would not wish to return here. Yet tonight, what was it that drew these individuals, seemingly gathered specifically for one particular stall? A throng of people gathered around a stall, obscuring its view. It was difficult to discern what was being sold. However, now and then, someone would emerge, clutching a bag of goods. The children in the neighborhood, naturally curious and fond of commotion, abandoned their attention to the nearby fountain, instead peering through the iron railings to observe the scene outside. Some youngsters, with their keen sense of smell, detected the enticing aroma from a distance and clamored to go out. Their parents, of course, disapproved. "Haven't you already had dinner? You cannot go." Others, regardless of whether they had eaten, outright refused. "That's a street vendor. It's unsanitary. We won't eat it." What was once a place of laughter and joy suddenly transformed into a sea of tears. The children, denied their desires, wept inconsolably, their cries piercing and heart-wrenching. They were young, lacking self-control, and the faint scent that barely registered to adults was overwhelmingly potent to them. When one child cried, the others followed suit. The sound of their weeping echoed through the corridors of the apartment complex, causing the automatic lights to flicker like firecrackers igniting. At that moment, Deng Yang and his family of 3 emerged, hand in hand. His daughter curiously glanced back at her peers, who were being restrained by their parents and reaching out from behind the railing, crying. She remarked innocently, "Daddy, they look like they're in prison." Deng Yang quickly reprimanded her. No, that's not a polite thing to say. They are simply under the care of rather strict parents." He then lifted his daughter into his arms, and just as he stood upright, his wife playfully pinched his waist. "Are you suggesting that taking the family to a street vendor makes one open-minded?" Since discovering that their lunch was not prepared by Wang Ma, but rather from a street stall, his wife had felt somewhat conflicted. On one hand, she found the food utterly delicious. The crispy rice crust had left her wanting more after finishing a bowl. On the other hand, she harbored concerns about hygiene, suspecting the presence of dubious ingredients. Their outing tonight was specifically to observe how the vendor prepared clay pot rice. Deng Yang's confidence in the vendor's culinary skills surpassed even his faith in his own stock trading abilities. With his family in tow, he maneuvered to the front of the line to watch. Others, like them, had also come to the front out of sheer curiosity rather than a desire to cut in line, as the queue stretched quite long, making it impossible to see what the stall offered from the back. Xin, Deng Yang's wife, noted that the vendor maintained commendable hygiene. A glance around revealed a bright and clean environment, devoid of any trace of dirt under the illuminating lights, which instantly put her at ease. Xiaolon, a chef who valued cleanliness, ensured that her food truck was impeccably maintained. She would never allow the presence of pests such as flies, mice, or cockroaches. Moreover, the truck had recently undergone a makeover, upgraded to a level of sophistication that radiated both understated elegance and luxury. Xin observed that the vendor operated 10 stoves, featuring 2 large clay pots and 8 smaller ones, all continuously ablaze. Standing nearby, she felt the warmth of the flames envelop her, creating a cozy ambience that was undeniably inviting. The clay pot appears quite pristine, devoid of any stains, which may be attributed to its dark purple hue, rendering it less susceptible to dirt. She glanced inside the small cart, which was not spacious and contained few items, all neatly arranged, revealing no towering piles of dirty dishes or the chaotic presence of flies around decomposing food waste. Upon closer inspection, she noticed that the cart was equipped with a dishwasher, tirelessly operating yet producing minimal noise. Shortly after, an employee opened the dishwasher, retrieving a spotless clay pot and replacing it with a used one. Xin felt a sense of satisfaction, having witnessed that the pot was solely utilized for cooking clay pot rice, subsequently packaged for customers, rather than being employed as tableware. Theoretically, the pot was clean enough for a somewhat audacious chef to simply add water and rice to prepare another batch of clay pot rice. However, the vendor chose to wash it, indicating a meticulous nature, emphasizing hygiene and avoiding flavor contamination. Furthermore, the vendor's actions significantly enhanced her impression. He was diligent in cleaning any food that fell onto the stove, promptly wiping up any spills, ensuring that no residue remained. Many street vendors and even restaurant owners often overlook such details, allowing food remnants to accumulate, only to clean them up after closing, or worse, leaving them until they dried out, becoming an unsightly stain that offended every patron's eyes. Despite Xion's discerning gaze, the hygiene standards of this stall were commendable. As the saying goes, the vendor truly deserves to profit. Of course, maintaining cleanliness was merely one of the shop's trifling virtues. The paramount excellence of this establishment undoubtedly lay in the flavors of its cuisine. The mere aroma twisted her stomach in knots, making it churn with hunger. Listening to the cries of children from the nearby community, she understood their plight. If she were unable to satisfy her cravings, she would surely weep as well. The thought of returning from the office at noon, a mere hour away, ignited a fierce determination within her, even if her husband failed to deliver her lunch. She would drive back to indulge. There is a saying that love can conquer mountains and seas, and indeed, as for the meals prepared by Wang Ma, it seemed her reluctance to return home for lunch was not due to distance, but rather the lack of sufficient temptation. Suddenly, her daughter raised her hand to wipe her mouth, exclaiming, "Mommy, why is your mouth crying? How embarrassing." Startled, Xian quickly dabbed her mouth, finding it damp. "Shoo, keep it down. Is this really a glamorous sight?" Chapter 118. This is no mere competition. This is clearly the god of wealth. Upon witnessing his wife's reaction, Deng Yang couldn't help but beam with pride, as if this stall were his investment. "Darling, what do you think of this establishment?" The wife, recently exposed by their daughter, could no longer maintain her aloofness and was compelled to speak candidly. "I find this place superior to many chain establishments. At least here, the kitchen is entirely open, allowing one to witness the entire cooking process. Some dining venues may appear glamorous on the surface, yet one can only speculate about the condition of their kitchens. Perhaps, in an effort to cut costs, they might even replate food that other tables have barely touched." "Mom, let's hurry and join the line. My mouth is starting to cry," urged the daughter in her innocent voice. Prompted by her words, the family of three dutifully took their place at the end of the queue. Other patrons were not idle either. In today's modern society, everyone possesses a smartphone and can assume the role of a blogger. They witnessed a curious scene unfold. A child from the nearby community, enticed by the aroma, began to wail, while what was typically a quiet area suddenly swelled with a long line of eager customers. All of this was simply too captivating. Countless individuals captured the moment and shared it on their social media. "I heard that a new stall serving divine clay pot rice has opened near the shopping center, with the owner using clay pots that cost over $1,000 each. They even sell braised chicken." The child from the opposite Greenview garden is howling with hunger. "I'm already in line and will provide a review soon." Before long, familiar faces began to comment. "I passed by that area on my way to work. Please tell me, is it delicious?" Half an hour later, the original poster shared another update, to everyone asking, "It's absolutely delicious. I can't emphasize enough how good it is. The rice, the crispy skin. I could devour an entire pot just of rice." For specifics, check out the video. Accompanying the post was a video capturing the person eating while recording. It seemed they had only remembered to film after they had begun eating, resulting in the clay pot rice being thoroughly mixed. Its presentation was not as appealing as when it first emerged from the pot. Yet every visible morsel of meat and vegetable appeared vibrant and fresh. However, the visual aspect was not the focal point. The true essence lay in the sounds captured. The background was filled with the cries of numerous children clamoring for a taste, yet the most pronounced sound was that of the eater chewing. While they did not smack their lips, they could not suppress the muffled sounds emanating from their throat, akin to a stray cat savoring meat for the first time. Even more audaciously, someone recorded the moment when Xiaolan lifted the lid of the braised chicken pot. The vibrant colors and the intoxicating aroma that wafted forth were like a powerful punch, shattering the lens of the phone and directly penetrating the screens of viewers. That night, countless individuals were inundated with such enticing late-night food videos, especially those residing in the same city or nearby, all meticulously targeted by data algorithms. Tremble, for big data has set its sights on you. By 8:30 in the evening, due to insufficient ingredients, they were compelled to close early, unbeknownst to Xiaolan as he departed. Countless pairs of eyes were watching him, longing for him to stay. Among them, a few gazes were unmistakably from the neighboring vendors. How they longed to rush over and cling to Xiaolan's leg, pleading for him not to leave. Once he departs, the crowd would disperse. No one would linger to enjoy a refreshing drink after savoring their clay pot rice. His absence was not merely that of a fellow merchant. He was akin to the god of wealth. Yet, Xiaolan simply waved his hand, departing without a trace. "I'm sorry, but we're sold out. I shall return tomorrow at noon. All are welcome." As the night deepened and the city's clamor faded into silence, Xiaolan, having finished his shower, lay in bed. He informed Lia Si and the others in the group that he was heading to sleep and urged them to do the same before quietly launching a game. After engaging in 2 exhilarating matches, just as victory was within his grasp, an urgent notification interrupted his gameplay. Suspicious activity detected at the snack cart. Startled, Xiaolan sat upright, all drowsiness vanishing. He swiftly accessed the surveillance footage, and there, on the screen, a shadowy figure stealthily approached his snack cart. Cloaked in a hat and mask, only a pair of shifty eyes were visible. Panic surged within him. What was happening? Had his undercover identity been compromised? Was someone here to investigate him? It seemed implausible. Even if they were spies, their information was far too precise. A bit too omniscient, wouldn't you agree? Xiaolan hastily clicked on the live feed to ascertain the intruder's actions. The figure, clad in black, withdrew a hammer from their pocket and began to skillfully strike the 4 corners of the snack cart's glass. Such expertise. The cart's red alert light blinked, yet, due to Xiaolan's absence, there was no way to ascertain the intruder's criminal background. Tap, tap, tap. The sound echoed as the thief struck persistently. Yet the glass remained impervious. The thief's expression shifted from surprise to frustration. This was a window-breaking hammer, capable of shattering car windows. How could it fail to break a mere snack cart's glass? Surely, it wasn't bulletproof glass. The thief's gaze fixated on the dozens of purple clay pots within, a glimmer of greed evident in their eyes. He was no spy. He was solely motivated by the prospect of wealth. After all, it's often said that a tall tree catches the wind. Xiaolan's stall had been showcased online, and the high-quality clay pots he used had garnered much attention. This thief was specifically after the purple clay pots. Just the pots alone could fetch tens of thousands. Additionally, dismantling other equipment could yield further profit. However, the thief had not anticipated that the seemingly fragile glass would prove so resilient. Just as Xiaolan prepared to dial the police, a dark shape leaped from the shadows. With a swiftness akin to the wind and an agile physique, it was none other than the black dog they had fed earlier that day. Woof, woof. The black dog's barks shattered the stillness of the night as it darted towards the thief like a streak of black lightning. Startled, the thief turned to flee, but the dog pursued relentlessly, sinking its teeth into the thief's rear. The thief yelped in pain. Damn it. In a frantic scramble, the thief vanished into the night, limbs flailing in a desperate escape. Xiaolan let out a sigh of relief and promptly called the police. This time, the heroic efforts of Captain Wolf have truly shown through. Although the thief may not be able to damage the food cart immediately, one cannot help but worry about what might happen if he were to go on a rampage. Spitting on the cart or urinating would inflict little harm, but would be exceedingly repulsive, causing great distress for Xiaolan. I hereby declare that all leftover food during my stall hours has been claimed by Xiaohe. After delivering a commanding speech on camera, Xiaolan donned her attire and prepared to report the incident. Just as she was about to step outside, her phone rang once more. An abnormal alert from the food cart's surveillance system had arrived. To her astonishment, the thief had returned. He held a bowl of something in his hand, waving at Xiaohe with a disconcertingly casual demeanor, entirely unlike the disheveled state he had been in after the earlier encounter. It seemed he was confident that with this new tactic, he could easily command Xiaohe's obedience. This man was truly a habitual offender. Xiaolan marveled at his extensive arsenal, which included a window-breaking hammer and dog food to entice her canine companion. Indeed, the art of thievery and the manipulation of dogs often go hand in hand. Suddenly, a troubling thought struck her, and concern filled her eyes. Was it possible that the dog food contained some toxic substance? If it were merely a tranquilizer, that would be one thing, but if it were poison, Xiaohe would be in grave danger. The thief placed the dog food in front of the food cart, a sinister grin on his face as he stepped back, clearly relishing the spectacle. Xiaolan sensed the impending doom. The dog food was surely compromised. Stray dogs are often a primary source of meat in dog meat establishments. Just moments ago, Xiaohe had aided her, and she could not bear the thought of him suffering harm now. Don't eat it, she whispered fervently, her eyes glued to the surveillance feed as she rushed out the door. She had already called the police, uncertain if they would arrive in time to apprehend the thief and save Xiaohe. In the video feed, Xiaohe approached the dog food, sniffing it before lowering his head and seemingly beginning to eat. Xiaolan sped down the deserted streets on her electric bike. Meanwhile, the footage revealed Xiaohe collapsing, his body stiffening and limbs convulsing. A chill ran down Xiaolan's spine. In stark contrast, the thief felt a surge of elation as he drew a hammer from behind his back, advancing towards Xiaohe. According to his twisted logic, the black dog should now be incapable of resistance. With a single blow of the hammer, the foul mutt would no longer impede his work. After finishing his heist, he could even sell the dog at the meat market for a tidy profit. Just as the thief raised his hammer high, the seemingly defenseless black dog suddenly sprang to life, leaping behind him and sinking its teeth into his rear. Oh, no. The thief flailed wildly with the hammer, but Xiaohe clung to him like a tail. Wherever the thief turned, the dog followed, making it impossible for him to land a blow. Suddenly, the blaring sirens of the police shattered the air, sending the thief into a frenzy, momentarily paralyzed by indecision. Should he strike the dog or flee? Don't move. Police. When Xiaolan arrived, she was met with the sight of the thief pinned to the ground. He lay on the ground, weeping and shouting, "Officers, if you intend to arrest me, then do so, but could you first deal with this dog that is still biting my rear end? Is there no justice left in the world? Stray dogs injure people. It must be a rabid beast. Kill it. Kill it." Xiaolan hurried over. "Who told you it's a stray? It has an owner. It's my guard dog. Xiaohe, come back." This was the first time Xiaolan referred to the black dog as Xiaohe, uncertain if it even understood the call. Fortunately, Xiaohe was indeed quite clever. Upon seeing the familiar Xiaolan, it scampered over eagerly. Woof woof. The sound of Xiaohe's bark was filled with pride and a distinct sense of claiming credit. A favor for a favor, repaying the act of catching a thief. "You didn't eat anything he gave you, did you? What if it was poisoned?" Xiaolan inquired. Though he did not expect an answer from Xiaohe, he went straight to inspect the dog food near the snack cart, and, to his dismay, found colorful pills within. Oh no, you didn't eat any, did you?" As he entered the inspection area of the snack cart, Xiaolan's mind was suddenly filled with the criminal records provided by the cart. Liang, grade C criminal, multiple thefts, breaking and entering, poisoning cats and dogs, selling unquarantined meat. organizing gambling, soliciting prostitution. Good heavens, what a scoundrel, truly a wretch of all trades. Xiaolan took a deep breath and resolutely declared, "Officers, this thief not only tried to smash the glass of my cart to steal, but he also poisoned my dog. You must not let him escape." The thief, hearing this, immediately protested loudly, "Don't frame me. Who says I poisoned the dog? I merely saw it in distress and knocked on the window to inquire if anyone was inside. When there was no response, I fed it a little something. What proof do you have that I intended to steal your belongings?" Such audacity. Even after being apprehended by the police, he dared to argue. Xiaolan promptly pulled up the surveillance footage on his phone. "I have evidence. You should confess before it's too late." The thief fell silent, yet still attempted to defend himself. "But the dog didn't get poisoned, did it? Your dog seems almost enchanted. It can pretend to eat without actually being harmed. It's its fault for biting me like this. You should be the one covering my medical expenses." Xiaolan rolled his eyes at his shamelessness. "Just because you say it wasn't poisoned doesn't make it true. I still have to take it to the hospital for an examination. You are responsible for its medical fees. Officers, you must adjudicate this matter." The thief was truly thick-skinned, seeking aid from the police. When Xiaolan looked up, he saw a familiar face and quickly suppressed a smile. "Who would have thought there was someone from my bureau here?" The officer investigating the situation was Ouyangyu, who exchanged knowing glances with Xiaolan, both pretending not to recognize each other. However, one might wonder, does Ouyangyu believe Xiaolan or the thief? "Stop causing a ruckus in the middle of the night. Return to the precinct to discuss this," Ouyangyu said sternly, decisively putting an end to the thief's brazen antics. After the thief was apprehended and taken away, Ouyangyu quietly advised Xiaolan, "You should first take your dog for a checkup, just in case it has been poisoned. Send me the surveillance evidence and then get some rest. Do not lose sleep over this trivial matter." "Okay, I didn't expect to trouble you so soon," Xiaolan replied. Ouyangyu reassured her, "Do not speak of trouble. Next time anything happens, come directly to me. No need to alert the police. I am aware of your situation, and handling it will be more flexible." As the police car drove away, Xiaolan waved to her dog, Xiaohei, and gestured towards her electric scooter. Sensing the residual scent of food on Xiaolan, Xiaohei eagerly leapt onto the front of the scooter, drooling all the way. Xiaolan found a 24-hour pet hospital, where blood tests were conducted, followed by a period of observation. Fortunately, Xiaohei showed no signs of distress. Upon reviewing the surveillance footage meticulously, magnifying it several times, she confirmed that although it appeared Xiaohei had been deceived, he had merely been chewing air and had not consumed any of the tainted dog food. What a clever dog, capable of outsmarting his adversaries. "You truly are a master at making the most of every meal," Xiaolan remarked with admiration. Since they were already there, she decided to give Xiaohei a bath and have him dewormed before sending him home. Observing Xiaohei's gentle demeanor and intelligence throughout the ordeal briefly sparked in her the thought of adopting him. However, she quickly realized that it was not her residence. The owner had painstakingly decorated the place and had not indicated any allowance for pets. It would be unwise to bring a dog into such a home without permission. Thus, she resolved to contact the landlord to inquire about the possibility of keeping a pet. If the landlord disapproved, Xiaolan would consider renting another place. Consequently, she entrusted Xiaohei to the pet hospital for a few days and prepared to return home for some much-needed rest. Barring any unforeseen circumstances, another demanding challenge awaited her the following day. With even thieves seeking to steal from her, it was evident that her claypot rice had garnered a reputation. Unlike her previous experience in the isolated Fenghan district, her popularity had spread in this bustling commercial area. It seemed she would need to resort to her purchasing strategy sooner than expected. Listening to the system's notification announcing the arrival of points, Xiaolan drifted into a peaceful slumber. The recent thief had inadvertently awarded her a bonus of 20,000, along with a reward of 200 points. While she appreciated the thief's unexpected contribution, it was barely sufficient to redeem even a small clay pot. Perhaps feeling somewhat dissatisfied with her reward, she dreamt of capturing an S-class target that night. The following day, Wang Hao, the previous vendor who had rented a stall to Xiaolan, walked through the bustling shopping center with a few potential business partners, wearing a confident smile as he spoke animatedly. "My previous stall was poorly situated, resulting in lackluster business. However, now that I have rented a stall on the first floor of the mall, though it is pricier, the customer flow has doubled. I thought it would take until the end of the month to find a tenant for the old stall, but to my surprise, there was immediate interest, and I quickly sublet it." He chuckled to himself. That naive kid clearly just entered the business without conducting any market research, blindly opening a food stall. Now, it remains a mystery how much one has lost. May he learn through hardship. Thus, in the realm of commerce, it is unwise to plunge in headlong. It is far better to collaborate initially with seasoned individuals who can guide one along the path before venturing into solitary endeavors. Upon hearing this, his potential partners all nodded in agreement, expressing their concurrence. Wang Hao's delight was palpable, for these individuals were precisely those he wished to enlist as partners in his business venture. In an era where tangible enterprises face daunting challenges, sharing the burden of risk with others offers a modicum of safety. He harbored no desire to belittle the young man who had previously taken the plunge. Rather, He felt a certain gratitude towards him for assuming the role of a risk-taker. However, to persuade others to join him, he must showcase his own sagacity in contrast to the naivete of novices. He even began to envision Xiaolan's failure, secretly relishing his own judicious choices. Come, let me take you for a stroll nearby, to compare the foot traffic of my current establishment with that of my former stall, Wang Hao proclaimed, gesturing grandly as he led his prospective partners towards what had once been his domain. He eagerly anticipated using the scant patronage of his previous stall to highlight the advantages of his current shop. Yet, upon arriving at the old stall, the sight before them rendered them all speechless. From a distance, a throng of people gathered, so dense that one might mistake it for a brawl. Upon approaching, they were astounded to discover a well-organized queue. The lengthy line formed an S shape, with two serpentine lines of customers, heads bowed over their phones, braving the biting cold while clutching numbered tickets, patiently awaiting their turn. Several folding tables were haphazardly arranged around the stall, resembling islets amid a sea of humanity. Each table was occupied by 5 individuals, who, unabashed by the public gaze, indulged in their meals with an air of triumph. These were no ordinary diners, but impeccably dressed business elites, several clad in suits and ties, casually slurping noodles at a street vendor's stall. Was this for real? Wang Hao hastily peered toward the front of the line, eager to discern whether the proprietor bustling about the stall was indeed the young man he had subleased to. The aroma of clay pot rice wafted through the air, with tin stoves firing up simultaneously, illuminating Xiaolan's busy figure in a warm glow. Although masked, his identity was unmistakable to Wang Hao, who recognized him by his build and the distinctive food cart he operated. How could this be? Wang Hao's voice trembled, his confidence and assurance shattered by the reality before him. Is this what you referred to as a stall with minimal foot traffic? One partner could not help but inquire, devoid of sarcasm, only genuine bewilderment. Yet, the mere utterance of this question was enough to leave Wang Hao in a state of profound embarrassment. He stood there awkwardly, at a loss for words. His gaze unconsciously darted about, searching for an escape from the awkward situation. However, what he beheld only dealt him another staggering blow. He noticed that the surrounding stalls had also transformed, with the vendors of coffee, ice cream, and toast experiencing exponential increases in customer numbers. Upon closer inspection, the stalls were adorned with handwritten fluorescent advertisements, vividly proclaiming, "New in our shop, refreshing lemon tea and zesty sour plum soup. Enjoy a cup after your meal. It pairs perfectly with claypot rice." Wang Hao's pupils trembled at the audacity of such marketing. Could business truly be conducted in such a brazen manner? Although the advertisement specified after meals, many patrons were seen sipping their drinks while queuing or even enjoying them alongside their meals. Indeed, they had managed to cleverly capitalize on the situation. Claypot rice, delicious as it may be, offers a singular flavor profile. As the palate becomes accustomed to it, taste buds tend to become complacent. At such moments, a sugary beverage serves as a delightful stimulus, reviving the palate and restoring the initial awe experience during the first mouthful of claypot rice. This explains why many dining establishments consistently offer meal sets paired with drinks. The young vendor overlooked a crucial gap, which was deftly filled by neighboring stalls. Perhaps the young proprietor had noticed this oversight but lacked the energy to create beverages. Just look at them. The 3 of them were overwhelmed. 3 individuals. Merely 3 days prior, during the transfer of the lease, the young vendor was managing alone. How swiftly the business had expanded, necessitating the hiring of 2 additional helpers. Chapter 119. Someone is about to jump Lu Dong, responsible for serving customers, noticed Wang Hao. Unaware of his identity as the former proprietor, he greeted him warmly. "Hello. We still have availability. You can place your order here and queue for pickup. Each person is limited to 2 portions." A strained smile crept across Wang Hao's face as he replied, his voice dry. "There's a limit?" Lu Dong, oblivious to Wang Hao's discomfort, continued. "Yes. Someone previously ordered dozens of portions for a company meal. That simply won't do. We prepare everything fresh for sale, while we sell to anyone. It would be disappointing for so many customers waiting in line." Wang Hao's heart was a tumult of emotions as he observed the young vendor. An indescribable feeling welling within him. He had once considered himself an experienced businessman, offering wholesale pre-prepared dishes with fixed flavors, believing that the only variable to consider was location. If the previous stall attracted little foot traffic, relocating to a busier area would undoubtedly improve sales, according to the principle of controlled variables. Yet now, doubts began to creep in regarding his judgment. Was it possible that his lackluster sales stemmed from the unchanging nature of his offerings, devoid of any surprises? Observing the coffee seller, he noted that she did not operate a franchise. Instead, she served freshly ground coffee. Lacking brand recognition, she nonetheless attracted a loyal clientele due to the quality of her beans, which discerning coffee aficionados could appreciate. As for the ice cream vendor, her ability to adapt was commendable. She frequently introduced new flavors. In truth, she utilized the same basic ingredients, merely crafting them into various whimsical shapes that captivated children, effectively becoming a magnet for their pocket money. And then there was the toast vendor, who occasionally drew customers from the upscale neighborhood across the street, a testament to her commendable culinary skills. Seizing the momentum of claypot rice, they adeptly adjusted their strategies, introducing new products, If they do not profit, who will? We have matters to attend to, so we shall take our leave. The partners casually fabricated an excuse to depart, and Wang Hao found himself devoid of the strength to persuade them to stay. He remained in a state of inner shock, perhaps needing to reconsider the positioning of his merchandise. With a sigh, the arrogance and pride he had upon arrival dissipated, and he approached humbly. May I trouble you for 2 servings of your signature rice? Do you have any recommendations? As Wang Hao prepared to leave with a box of braised chicken rice and a box of clay pot rice, a voice suddenly called out, at the shopping center. A young girl is about to jump. What? A ripple of excitement surged through the crowd, and many who had just received their meals or collected their numbers rushed to see. Indeed, it is human nature to gossip. Wang Hao joined the throng to witness the commotion, following the direction of their gestures. He could see a young girl perched precariously on the ledge of the shopping center's top floor, her cries echoing with a haunting intensity, her entire being trembling with despair. In such a volatile state, she could leap at any moment or slip and fall. Call the police. Quick. Wasn't there a specialized airbag to catch jumpers? Is that the responsibility of the firefighters or the police? Who knows? Perhaps we should call both 119 and 110. Let's include 120 as well. I'm afraid she won't hold on long enough for 110 to arrive. Chapter 120. The arrival of braised chicken. The jump is on hold. The interior design of the shopping center is commonplace, featuring an open atrium with escalators, with shops arranged in a circular fashion on each level. At this moment, the girl stood at the highest point, her body already leaning over the railing. Due to the open design, should she fall, she might plummet directly to the first floor. However, it is far more likely she would land unluckily on the escalator. Falling to the first floor might allow for some cushioning from an airbag, but landing on the escalator could result in severe injury from the protruding steps. No one could fathom why a seemingly ordinary day of shopping had spiraled into this desperate act. The girl appeared quite young, her face reflecting the innocence of one yet to enter the workforce. Standing at the edge, her eyes resembled 2 pools of mire, overflowing with tears that soaked her clothing. Her fingers clutched her phone tightly, as if it were her only lifeline. It was unclear who she was speaking to, but in a fit of hysteria, she cried out, "How am I to prove it to you? Must I die to demonstrate that I am not lying?" Her voice was laced with hopelessness, as though the entire world had forsaken her. "You know exactly what you've done. We have already broken up. Do not trouble me any further," came the cold response from the other end of the line, followed by the abrupt disconnection. Below, the crowd continued to swell, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and concern. The flash of mobile phone cameras flickered, yet more hands were busy dialing emergency services. "They've arrived. The police are here," someone shouted excitedly from within the crowd, as if salvation had finally come. A crowd of onlookers parted to allow the police to approach. Officers, property management, and security ascended to the floor where the girl was located, with a female officer stepping forward in an attempt to persuade her. "Please, don't despair. We are here to help," a police officer called out. Yet, the girl seemed deaf to their pleas, repeatedly dialing a previous number. Concurrently, she sent a flurry of texts. "Answer my call. Please, I beg you to pick up. I know you are still here. I can see you. Surely, you can see me too? What must I do for you to believe me? I swear on my life, I have not betrayed you. Is it only by jumping from here that you will trust me?" Finally, the call connected, but the voice on the other end was cold and impatient. "If you want to die, then die. You act like a saint after being a harlot. Don't try to intimidate me. I can see you're just bluffing. You wouldn't dare jump. I have a new girlfriend now, a pure and kind girl, unlike you. Stop haunting me. It no longer matters how many beds you've shared." The final straw that broke her was the very person she had once deemed her lifeline. In a fit of madness, she smashed her phone and screamed the name of the figure leaving the mall with someone else. "Li Ming. I hate you." Subsequently, she took a step forward into the abyss. At that moment, a familiar voice pierced the air. "Don't jump." A familiar silhouette rushed out of the elevator, clutching 2 takeout boxes and sprinting toward the girl. It was her best friend, sobbing as she ran. Xiaoying, weren't we just out shopping together to clear our minds? Didn't we agree to forget the past? What is wrong with you? Despite the police and security's attempts to calm her for so long, it was the appearance of her friend that finally turned her head. Yet, it was merely a fleeting glance. Her resolve to die remained. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry," she stammered, remembering her friend's timid nature. "Close your eyes, no? Don't look. I don't want to scare you." Trembling, she prepared to release her grip on the railing. Her friend shouted desperately, "I waited an hour in line to get you the braised chicken you love. Let us eat first and talk after." With tears streaming down her face, she lifted the takeout bag and, still sobbing, opened the lid of the container. A wave of fragrant steam wafted up, filling the air. Surely, she could choose to die at any time, but cold food would be less enjoyable. One should at least die with a full stomach, right? Her friend's voice quivered, revealing her own vulnerability despite her brave words. The girl's body trembled slightly as she caught sight of the box of braised chicken, golden chicken, rich broth, enticing mushrooms, and vibrant red peppers, all striving to envelop her in warmth, attempting to thaw her frostbitten heart. Just as she had seen in the video, there was no disparity between the real dish and its digital counterpart. She had been hiding in her rented room for an entire week before stepping out today. In moments when life feels desolate and devoid of hope, her dear friend hastened across provinces to her city, knocking upon the door of her tightly shut rented room. The cold wind roused her senses, while the sunlight dispelled the shadows that clung to her spirit. Her friend tidied the space, mopped the floor, encouraged her to bathe, and even styled her hair. She then showcased delectable nearby culinary delights on her phone, insisting on taking her out for a meal. As she watched the vibrant, sun-kissed yellow braised chicken in the video, a flicker of determination to revive her spirit and embrace life anew sparked within her. However, the unexpected reunion shattered the fragile courage she had just begun to muster. Noticing the shift in her demeanor, her friend quickly opened another takeout bag, revealing a box of claypot rice. I bought myself beef claypot rice, but I forgot that I just got braces and can't eat anything hard. Would you help me finish the crispy rice? The gleaming silver aluminum container contrasted starkly with the tender brown beef. Judging by its color, the beef was perfectly cooked, neither tough nor dry. A few vibrant green